20 years. Los Rancheros brings a top-shelf dining experience to you with the opening of their beautiful new building. Watch all college and pro games on Los Rancheros' 14 large-screen TVs with great drink specials daily from 2 to 5 and during all the games. Los Rancheros, the place for live sports and great food on 23rd Street between Jenks and Harrison.
By now, you've heard us talking about Tiger TV Pro. Hi, David Hayes from the Afternoon Underdogs, here to remind you about this incredible streaming service with over 6,000 premium channels. And the cost, you ask? $15 a month. Yes, only $15 a month. Every sports channel is available, including the ACC and SEC network, the NFL, NBA, MLB, HBO, Showtime, and thousands more. For more info, go to our website at espnpc.com. Scroll down and click the Tiger logo.
From sky to sea, a healthy earth supports a healthier you. And as Christians, we're to be good stewards of everything God has entrusted to us, including our earthly home. It has a direct impact on our health. Poor air and water quality and other environmental factors can be linked to health problems like respiratory disease, heart disease, obesity, and some cancers. But there are things you can do, like conserving water, supporting recycling initiatives, and repurposing items that have outworn their use, and using energy-efficient light bulbs and reusable products instead of disposable. You can also walk, bike, carpool, plant a tree, or volunteer for a cleanup day at your local park or church. And give your health an extra boost by eating sustainable foods from local farmers markets or growing a vegetable garden of your own. From Samaritan Ministries, a health-sharing ministry, I'm Doug Chamberlain with a Family Health Checkup. For more, visit us at familyhealthcheckup.org.
I'm Staff Sergeant Mark Anthony Madrid.
Staff Sergeant Samantha Cowell.
I'm Staff Sergeant Alex
Staff Sergeant William Lewis, and I am proud to defend my family and our nation.
The Air Force Reserve is part of the story of this great nation.
I'm grateful that I have a chance to wear the uniform of the heroes that went before me.
I'm proud to be part of a team that helps make a difference in the world.
Every day, men and women from communities across this nation serve as Reserve Citizen Airmen. Even as technology evolves and changes, our commitment to defend and protect this nation remains steadfast. We celebrate those who have served and those who are proudly serving. We celebrate our proud history and look towards an exciting and uniting future. Our mission is to fly, fight, and win in air, space, and cyberspace.
And I am proud to be a member.
And I'm proud to serve in the United States.
And I am proud to protect our country.
Proud to serve in the U.S. Air Force Reserve.
Uh-oh, Brad's buzzed.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he's starting with the woots. And now a speech.
I just want to say that friendship is about heart and brain. Who's with me?
Good thing is, he knows when he's buzzed.
And my brain is saying, when it's time to go home, somebody call me a ride.
Love that guy.
Me too.
Know your buzzed warning signs? Call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
WGSX Lynn Haven, WTOT, W271D in Mariana, WVLQ Port St. John, powered by Pepsi, ESPN Northwest Florida.
West Florida, you guys are riding with the Afternoon Underdogs, and you're listening to ESPN Northwest Florida, 104.3 in Panama City, 102.1 in Mariana, and 101.9 in Port St. Joe. We are the Afternoon Underdogs. I'm David Hayes, along with a fantastic Friday cast for you here on Fan Friday. We've got AG Adam Goff. We've got Caveman Rick. We've got Ian Malone. James is on the ones and twos, and Miles is in Mississippi. Big day ahead of you guys today. We're going to have RJ Starcevich getting us ready for the Daytona 500 here at 420. We'll be playing some traffic jam and trivia, a Daytona 500 question along with that at 440. Kerry Miller will join us at top of the second hour talking some college basketball. And then we'll wrap it up with some local today. We've been talking about the Super Bowl all week, and it's not going to stop here. I'm sure that we've got one fan with us today who needs to air his grievances. But we'll let AG start it off. AG, give me some of your thoughts and takeaways from the Super Bowl.
Great game
first off. Both teams played really, really well. They both made some serious mistakes, I think, particularly in the first half. Second half, though, the defense for the Eagles not showing up, not getting any pressure on Mahomes, definitely hurt them, not forcing them to punt at all in the second half. The offense did enough. They put up, 30-some-odd points. The defense has to step up and do their job as well. Everybody wants to harp on the call, right, on Bradbury. As far as that flag goes, I understand the whole mentality behind you've not been calling it all game, and yet you choose to call, that penalty at that time. I don't have a problem with the flag in general. The thing I have an issue with is when that flag was thrown, and not in terms of at the 2.5-minute mark, in terms of if the flag is thrown as soon as the official sees Bradbury grab that jersey, which he did, I'm fine with the flag, and I'm fine with the penalty. But when you wait until the ball lands incomplete before you throw the flag for that holding call, it's suspect there, and it opens up a dialogue of, is this fixed? Is the rig in? Are the Chiefs, the predicted, victor of this game? And nobody needs that, especially Roger Goodell coming off of the heels of him saying that the officiating in the NFL has never been better, right?
Good old Goodell.
But great game, ifs and buts and that whole thing. But, if Jalen Hurts doesn't have that egregious fumble and it gets run back, it's a completely different story toward the end of the game. Then that play doesn't have to happen. Dude played his absolute tail off.
Mm-hmm.
Had probably one of the best Super Bowls for a quarterback we've ever seen. And it's just a shame that his defense couldn't match his intensity.
Especially when what we were talking about leading up. Well, we were talking a lot about offense, but what's been the focus kind of
that vaunted defense?
Especially that defensive front for the Eagles. Caveman Rick?
Well, I'll start with saying the same thing. It was a great game. I'm glad I was being able to watch it, that we were actually there, Congratulations, TikTok boy. I'll say that, I guess you earned it, you never been there, like A.J. Brown, was saying, and you're not who you think you are. But, we'll move past that. Hopefully, Bradbury still stays an Eagle. And Juju's still a Chief, being that they're both free agents, because the Eagles and the Chiefs do play next season, and I would like to see a replay, and I would like to see, what could happen between those two. There would definitely, I'm sure, be some fireworks if their two are playing on each respective team. So
Lattimore and Evans is one. Talib and Crabtree is another.
Well, I'm talking about like right now, though. Current, though.
Yeah,
that's what I'm looking for. I want to see that, and if they do decide to go to different teams, maybe they play against each other. Wouldn't it be crazy if they ended up on the same team? Yeah. It'd just be nuts. I don't think,
practices will be fun.
I can't see, I don't think Bradbury may be going to Kansas City, though. And after that, I don't think Juju would come to Philly. So I think they'd have to meet up someplace else. But all things considered, like I said, it was a great game. Tale of two halves, really. Eagles dominated the first half, Kansas City the second half. It sucks that, it comes down to a call that the game's probably going to be remembered for, which it probably shouldn't be, being that it was such a great game. I'm sure that's what most people are going to take from this, unless something else happens where, this is the last one Patrick Mahomes ever wins or something like that. Then people might remember it, a little bit differently down the road. But only time's going to tell, when it comes down to that. I will say, I guess by the letter of the law, that was a hold. My analogy would be, though, you're making this call in the bottom of the ninth, like an umpire would be making a call on a pitch. Bottom of the ninth, 2 outs, 2 strikes to go, and now you make a call on a pitch that you haven't called the whole rest of the game, but you're going to choose right now to make that call. To me, that's kind of, it's a little out of bounds.
That's called the Greg Maddux.
It should have been very. I would have liked a little bit more consistency. I would have liked at least a chance to go down and at least try to get a field goal and at least tie it too, because he wouldn't like to have seen a game like that going to overtime as well. Yeah. That would have made the game even that much better. It does suck that unfortunately that flag did have to come a few seconds after the hold. Almost makes you, like you said, wonder did somebody get in somebody's ear with a mic or something? Hey, throw the flag. Especially that's coming from the official that was furthest away from the play. Actually, there was a ref that was closer to the play that could have and should have made that call. That actually didn't make the call then too, which is a little suspect too, if you will. How's that guy that has the better view not making the call, but a guy that's 30 yards down the field's making that call?
Don't it seem to always play out like that? We've got Will on line one. You're riding with the Afternoon Underdogs. What's your thoughts, Will?
Hey, it's the American way. Find an excuse, right? If that call is the difference between a good game and a bad game, everybody missed a good quarterback fumbling the ball that he shouldn't have fumbled, and that is honestly the big difference in the game. You can't get mad at a referee because he calls the game from his vantage point, which when we're sitting in our seats and we're getting 5 views at home, I remember they don't get that. And yeah, they probably were calling the game a little soft. That's great, let them play. But when they see it and they call it from their vantage point, you can't be mad at them because you can't see what they can see. And again, I mean, you've heard the talk about it all week long and all last week. They should have been wearing white gloves. I mean, if you're gonna go rob a bank, you wear a mask. You don't grab a hold of somebody with colored gloves on a white shirt.
Well, if anybody would know about robbing banks, it would be the Chiefs and their wolf mascot, right?
No, not the mascot, the fan wearing the similar mascot costume.
But Will, I don't know if you heard me or not earlier, but I did say that fumble by Jalen Hurts in the first half was the difference in that game.
Yeah.
And
that was the deal.
Jalen did get face masked though while he was trying to get the ball there, and there was no flag there as well. But that's nor here nor there, I guess. Nobody wants to say anything about that.
I agree, but I really don't want 50 refs on the field to where there be more vantage points. I mean, they can only call what they can see. But again, I'm going to go to something else. The Eagles' defense, I believe, kind of got a little bit more credit than they should have got this season, because if you look back at their schedule and the quarterbacks they actually played, it made the defense look better than it really was, in my opinion. Looking back at it now in hindsight, I understand they got the potential to have a dynamite defense. As a Georgia fan, I know I got some of my dogs on their team, but, I look back at the quarterbacks and the teams that they played, and I say, was their defense really that good, or was the teams they really played that bad?
I say 70 sacks is pretty good.
Yeah, it is pretty good, but look at the quarterbacks they played. I mean, and look at the teams they played.
I mean, you can only play the schedule you got in front of you. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's
right. They also didn't all have bad offensive lines either.
Right.
Just saying.
Right. And but give and take. It's Brady beat them a couple years ago. They had offensive linemen missing. The Chiefs did, and this year they had a healthy offensive line. I mean, Mahomes is one of them people that he's got that Brady effect. I think any given point you can look at him on the field, he doesn't look concerned about the score. He's confident that he can win. There's only a few quarterbacks that run through the NFL that got that look no matter what the situation is in the game, and they can do it. I mean, Mahomes, if you ask me, he's also one of the people that can come back from 28-3 in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I'll give it all to Mahomes. Andy Reid's a great coach. A lot of people want to prop him up. I'm not want to take a whole lot away from Andy Reid. I mean, he was my coach for 14 years. But I will say this, in 19 years of head coaching, until he was Patrick Mahomes' head coach, no Super Bowl victories, no wins there. I mean, he could get there in the playoffs sort of like a Marty Schottenheimer or something, but couldn't seal the deal, and he gets a guy like a Mahomes, I guess a generational talent, one of those guys that's probably going to go down, in history, and that's what's getting him over the hump, it looks like.
Yeah, and you do learn from your mistakes, and he's definitely got a lot of experience in mistakes and learning. So, I mean, eventually he was going to get it together at some point, I'd like to think. I mean, you give him that many years as a coach, sooner or later, he's going to figure it out, and he definitely has a good quarterback.
Absolutely. Hey, Will, we appreciate the call, my man. Thanks so much.
Yep.
That is Will Egan. Get to your thoughts here on the Super Bowl and your takeaway. I know that everyone's kind of on the opinions are consistent, right? The flags are a big deal, or the flag is a big deal, the playing surface. But what was your takeaways?
Well, before I answer that question, I do want to say hello to my peeps who are joining me from the sci-fi writer end of the world, who are viewing us on live streaming on Facebook and YouTube, who are undoubtedly asking themselves, how is it that the biggest mouth for Florida State football in the writer community got seated next to this butt-ugly University of Florida banner over here?
I don't think that they could see it on camera today.
I never know where all the views are coming from anymore. I'm still an old-school radio guy that's just audio only. But what I will say is this. If I have to get a shot in the cheek later because of this thing, I'm sending you the bill for that.
I'll pass it along to Randy at that point.
Sorry, send that one up the flag to ownership.
There you go.
So no, I mean, Super Bowl. Listen, I'm a writer. I'm a storyteller. That's what I do. So I'm always kind of looking at things from that lens, right? And so the story of this game really, in a lot of respects, to kind of compare it to something outside of sports culture, would be something like The Sopranos. It was a great game, right up until the final 2 minutes, and you got that ending. That ending. You look back at what could have been if you could have nailed the end, and this is a game for the ages. And I know a lot of the football diehards will say that stands, that isn't changed. But in the minds of a lot of fans, that flag did change that. And I'm kind of in agreement with Caveman. Call it all game, man. You know, you can't let them play it out all game and then throw that flag at the end. I get it, man. Per the letter of the rule, technically it is holding. I get it. I'm not disputing that at all. But I am a fan of continuity. You know, and once you set that tone in the minds of players that, you know, this is what is allowed, this is what they're calling, this is what they're not, you're going to abide by that, particularly when it's the biggest game of your life. And you get to 2 minutes and all of a sudden something that stood throughout the game now doesn't stand, you got a flag, and Jalen Hurts never gets a chance to get on the field to show us what he could have done with 90 seconds, give or take, left to try and go down and answer that field goal kick. So that's kind of the way I look at it. You know, Sopranos, Game of Thrones, another one. Lost was another show that, you know, we loved through it. And then you get to the end and you're like, really? Like, that's the best you could do to land the plane was to give me that ending? The show was so good, and we get to the end and you screwed a pooch. Like, how does that even happen? So that was kind of the way I look at it from a writer-storyteller standpoint. That's the way I'll remember that game, is it was great right up until the end. And, you know, the shows that I mentioned, The Sopranos, Game of Thrones, those, Sons of Anarchy was another one. I loved them for a time, but because of the way it ended, I don't know that I'll ever go back and rewatch those, really have any drive to go back and rewatch them. Whereas, you know, you look at some of the other big-time old-school shows that just really nailed the end, you know, those are timeless. Justified, I'll go back and watch that one all day long. Yeah. Firefly, you name it.
It took me about 8 months or so to rewatch that Super Bowl from last year with the Bengals and Rams.
Yeah,
about 8 months.
What was why 8 months? What was your problem with the Super Bowl last year?
Well, I mean,
outside of your team losing.
Number one, the Bengals lost. Right. I mean, I had not seen the Bengals in that game for 31 years, whatever it was. So, number one, losing it, not wanting to relive that heartache, right? You know, so, but in rewatching the game, you know, for me, this is 2 Super Bowls in a row that have been negatively affected by calls that probably shouldn't have been made.
What was the big call for you that stood out in Super Bowl 56?
Late in the fourth quarter, Rams are driving. It's 3rd down. Logan Wilson gets called for a pass interference for basically reaching his arm around Cooper Kupp.
So almost the same type
knocking
of
the ball down. But if you look, Logan Wilson never even touched Cooper Kupp and knocked the ball down.
Mm-hmm.
Then that's when you had the whole Cooper Kupp getting hit, and they called a personal foul on Cincinnati. They get another shot at it, and then they get a touchdown. Changes the complexion of the game, right? Now Burrow doesn't have to go and drive 75 yards on that final drive. He's got to drive arguably 40 yards, maybe 40 yards with the way Evan McPherson was kicking last year. So it was just 2 Super Bowls in a row for me that I thought the players didn't have 100% effective or 100% effect on the game. There was a 5, 10, 15%, whatever percentage you want to throw out there.
How many games in the regular season do you think come down to that legitimately don't have any referee involvement, that is 100%, it was won or lost on the field by the players? Now, I don't think that if we were to really watch, go back and watch every game, I don't think there would be that many of them. I think a lot of these come down to last-second flags or a big-time pass interference with them getting the ball down at the 5-yard line or within field goal position. I hate it, and I agree with you guys, and I would love for it to be more consistent. I just don't know if, for me, I can sit there and say that after watching 58 minutes of this ball game, now it's lost, and it's not a great game anymore. It's still one of the best Super Bowls that we've had in a good little while, in my opinion, with or without the flag.
Most offensive one, yeah.
If I was yes, absolutely. Last year,
Eagles been involved with 2 great ones in the last 5 years.
100%. Rams Bengals was 23-20, so a little different scoring, but still a good game. And if Aaron Donald doesn't get his hands on Joe Burrow, we could be talking about the Bengals winning.
Now, and here's a Miles kind of a conspiracy kind of tinfoil hat kind of theory. We touched on it just for a couple seconds.
Does that tinfoil hat fit better on his head now that he's got a haircut?
Probably so.
Okay.
A little tighter. It probably makes a better connection with the actual scalp and the skin, closer to the skull and the brain. But, so we touched about it for just a moment, but the field. Now, do we think that maybe the NFL maybe had them call this so that the focus is put on perhaps the flag and not the field conditions so that people don't make a bigger fuss? Because actually more people have been fussing about the flag than they have about the field. And with all this talk of player safety and whatnot, it's not a good look for the NFL.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. I hate it for the rest that they have to go through this. I hate it for the fans that they have to witness this, and I hate it for the players that they have to deal with this. It's one of those situations. But I guess how Ian said it earlier. My first takeaway from Ian's comments is the NFL needs better script writers. Then they need to get away with the HBO guys and all of that good stuff and get them some authentic script writers, maybe some former players. Would work as well. We've got someone on the line with us. You're right. Oh, okay. Well, we need to go ahead and go to break then. My bad. We've got RJ Starcevich, and he'll be on the line with us here in about 2 minutes. You're riding with the Afternoon Underdogs. We'll be right back.
Weather forecast for this afternoon: cloud showers and thunderstorms, some locally severe thunderstorms, and temperatures falling through the 50s during the afternoon with gusty winds. Partly to mostly clear in the upper 30s to around 40 tonight. Northwest wind up to 30. Sunny, breezy, temperatures in the 60s over the weekend. This weather forecast has been brought to you by Ellis Agency Insurance. For ESPN Northwest Florida, I'm meteorologist Tim Root.
Ben and Deb Collins, owners of Bay Guns and Gear, have been in business since 2010, offering new firearms and accessories with a huge selection available for your hunting needs and personal defense. Turn to Bay Guns and Gear. They have the weapon for you. Discount pricing. And if you can't find what you're looking for, they'll special order it for you. Bay Guns and Gear, across from Grease Pro at 3115 Highway 77. Visit their website, baygunsandgear.com.
What's that grin about?
I just took a load off my staff by hiring Fresh Start Cleaning Services.
How'd you manage that?
Fresh Start Cleaning Services allows our team to leave at the end of their shift and not have to stay and clean after a double. They're happy, and you should see the difference having a professional cleaner makes. Plus, now I know exactly how much the cleaning cost will be for the year.
Wow, that would make anyone smile.
You can call Fresh Start Cleaning Services at 850-771-6057.
Tyndall Air Force Base to the Hathaway Bridge. We're live and local. It's the Afternoon Underdogs. 104.3 ESPN Northwest Florida.
Back here on ESPN Northwest Florida, 104.3. You're riding with the Afternoon Underdogs. I am AG, bringing it in for old David Hayes. We got Ian in the house, K-Man Rick, and James on the ones and twos. And on the line, we have the owner and founder of the NASCAR Report on Instagram, Mr. RJ Starcevich. How are we doing today, sir?
Doing good, doing good. Found the quietest part of the racetrack I could. We're out here at Daytona. It's going to be a fun weekend. Already has been. Hope you all are doing well.
Yeah, doing well, man. We appreciate your time. We know you're a busy guy. Let's just jump right into it here. Which driver needs a win here to cement their legacy in this sport?
Well, I think a guy, the first guy that comes to my mind is going to be Ryan Blaney. And everybody asks me, who's your pick for the 500? He's been close so many times. A few runner-up finishes now, a few top five. I think this year has got to be the year he gets the job done. He gets the victory lane, especially after, the victory lane drought he had last year. I think to kick off the year with a win, just like Martin Truex did at the Clash, I think it would be beautiful for Ryan Blaney, and I think it would definitely cement his legacy as a very, very, young star with a huge potential.
Hey, RJ, which team this week at practice has looked the best this week at the Cup Series level?
Well, it's funny you mentioned practice. We haven't had any until about an hour. They gave the teams no practice before qualifying in the duels. But as far as teams that have probably looked best in the duels, since that was basically their practice, I would say the Fords have looked very fast as far as, in groups. Obviously, they won both of the duels yesterday. The Chevys are always going to be fast in single car runs. And the Toyotas are always the ones that seem to get it done at the end of the show, that end up winning these Daytona 500s, especially Denny Hamlin. But I think as far as teams working together the best, that look fast in groups and know how to manage the draft, I think it looks like the Fords right now.
Cool. RJ, it's Ian Malone here, man. It is a pleasure to finally make your acquaintance for real, dude. We've been bouncing DMs for a while on Twitter. You doing all right?
I'm doing good, man. How about you? It's great to talk to you.
Yeah, likewise, man. Listen, there was a lot of talk, a lot of headlines over the offseason, very short offseason as it always is. But, silly season always takes flight no matter what part of the year we're in. We're heading into 2024 after this season with a lot of big open seats, whether we're talking about the 4 over at Stewart-Haas, conceivably the 19 at Gibbs if Truex finally decides to call it a career. There could be a few other spots opening up around the way, but is there any early buzz kind of around the garage or around the industry about some of the names that could potentially be in line to fill some of these seats? And specifically, I'm looking at a guy like Corey LaJoie, who's hanging out over there at Spire and has really kind of forged himself into like the people's champion of the sport, who's really looking for his first shot at a top-level ride.
Yeah, I was actually talking to somebody about something like this today, and, we had 2 seats. 2 guys just confirmed back to their rides this weekend in itself. The 2 Trackhouse Racing drivers are both back. I know people were questioning if Ross Chastain maybe would make the move to one of them. He's going to be at Trackhouse for a while. So you mentioned Corey LaJoie. That's an interesting candidate as well. I think this is a huge year for him to once again prove himself as a driver. He's getting some truck races as well. He just was on track in the Truck Series, and he's running the Cup race obviously as well in the full season. He could be a great candidate. I looked at 2 guys that Kevin Harvick has in his KHI, management, which are Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Obviously, Ryan Preece is already with the team now. You got 2 guys in the Xfinity Series. Does Cole Custer end up moving back up? Does Riley Herbst move up to Cup? He's got a few starts this year. It's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. And then, like you mentioned, the 19 car on the Toyota side, you got John Hunter Nemechek, who seems like the guy that's going to be next in line to get that Toyota Cup spot if it does open. He's got an Xfinity Series year ahead to prove himself in, and he's on track right now. So it's going to be interesting. There's definitely still a great set of free agents. And, this time last year, nobody would have said that Kyle Busch was moving out of the 18 and moving to Richard Childress Racing.
Sure.
So, it is, some incredible things can happen throughout the year that you would have never thought would happen. And that's why I always just say never. I thought last offseason was going to be a simple offseason, and it surely wasn't. We had one of the biggest moves probably in the sport's recent history. So the number 4 seat of Kevin Harvick is going to be big shoes to fill, once it does open, and who's going to take that ride, it will be interesting to tell. That 10 car could be open as well as Eric Almirola. He was in the media center yesterday and didn't really, he said, he'll just keep evaluating it as the year goes on. So there's going to be open seats, and there's definitely candidates that are ready to fill those seats. And I'm sure, the top of the Cup level will look a little different next year.
You mentioned Kyle Busch just now, and I'm glad you brought that up. He makes the move to Childress over from Gibbs. There's no doubt the fire that is in Kyle Busch. He's one of the greatest to ever get behind the wheel at the Cup Series level. I think you could make the argument that you have never seen a dialed-in Kyle Busch like you were going to see this year behind the wheel of the 8 for RCR. He's got a chip on his shoulder like never before, with something to prove that he should have never been let go from the 18. He showed it last night in the duels, ran up front until Suarez turned him in the wreck. What are you expecting out of him in year one with Childress?
I'm definitely expecting a fired up Kyle Busch, like you said. It's funny. I literally just walked by him right before hopping on this call. I was getting my way to one of the garages that's kind of quiet right now, and then I ended up just walking by the driver RV lot, where they were getting on the golf carts, and everybody else was laughing, and Kyle Busch was just walking straight faced, determined. So I know last night definitely was put a little wrench in things, getting turned from the lead in a race that essentially, doesn't matter a ton, and you don't need to tear up stuff. But I think, he's definitely going to be fighting with a vengeance this year. I mean, I know he knows that he shouldn't have been let go of the 18 and kind of did away like he was. They had a press conference in the media center this morning with all the owners of the manufacturers, and the guy with Toyota had said, he had a quote that got put out there saying, there'll be some instances where we miss Kyle Busch and some where we won't. And so I'm sure Kyle already saw that tweet and probably fired him up even more. So we're going to see a fired up Kyle Busch this year, and I think those RCR Chevys have the power in them to make something happen this year. We saw it with Tyler Reddick last year. If he can win a few races in the 8, why can't Kyle Busch?
Sure enough.
You're listening to ESPN Northwest Florida. We're on the line live from Daytona. RJ Starcevich there at the Xfinity race right now. How has Travis Pastrana looked so far to this point without any practicing but qualifying in the duels? How has he looked?
The dude is excited, that's for sure. I was sitting next to him in the media center after qualifying, and he's just sitting there joking around. Obviously, he's happy because he made the race. And it's funny, he was almost late to Truck Series qualifying. He probably forgot he was doing that, and he was sprinting down pit road. But he's having an amazing time. I'm sure he's very excited to do this, and the fact that he made the 500. He said it's a dream come true, something he's always wanted to do. And I think, he's looked good. He held his own in the duel last night in the pack. I know he got caught up in a crash, but there wasn't really too much he could do there. That's just Daytona. But I think this Truck Series race coming up tonight will really help him. He'll be racing in the 41 truck for Nice Motorsports on FS1 tonight. I think that'll really help him kind of get the groove back. He's running, stock car races at Daytona before, but, that was like 6-7 years ago. So he'll get back in that groove tonight, I think, and I think he'll be, he's got a really fast car, obviously, for Sunday. So as long as he keeps it clean and minds his own business, that's what he says his plan is. He said his plan, as long as he can finish on the lead lap with a clean car, he's happy.
Right on, RJ. Thanks for making a pit stop and talking to us and give us a little bit of your time today. But give us 3 drivers this weekend that you think are poised to win in the 500.
3 drivers poised to win. First I'd go with the guy I mentioned earlier, Ryan Blaney, for sure. I think this is his year. I think he can get it done. Obviously, still very early in his career, but already we feel like he's been close so many times that he's just due for that win. So I think Ryan Blaney's one of them. Kevin Harvick in his final year, coming out and winning the Daytona 500. Obviously, he's already won one before, but to win another one in his final year, I think that'd be a perfect way to begin his send-off season. And then, I'll give you 2 more names, one of them being Kyle Busch, since we've already talked about him. I mean, what a statement victory that would be, regardless of it being Daytona or not. You coming out and winning the first race of the season with your new team is going to be a huge statement for him. And I'll go someone like Ricky Stenhouse Jr. It's the name that always comes up, the last few years. He's won 2 of them. He's won at Daytona. He's won at Talladega. But it's the name that always comes up for a team that, we really don't know too much of the state of past this year. I think that Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is someone, after a little bit of a struggle of a year last year, that would be, incredible for a team and for a single car organization and for him to make that happen. But, as they say in Daytona, anything can happen. I mean, we got Jimmy Johnson in the field. Could he win the race? We got Connor Daly, IndyCar driver in the field, Travis Pastrana. There's so many great names that could potentially win on Sunday, and it's a long, grueling race. We're just going to have to see what happens.
Yeah, so, I know that you cover mainly the Xfinity Series, and I was going to say your wheelhouse, the Xfinity Series, but I think the sport of racing in general is RJ's wheelhouse. Speaking of the Xfinity Series, though, you're live there. in Daytona. Who's looked the best in the qualifying and are there duels for the Xfinity Series as well?
No. So the Xfinity
practice?
Series doesn't run any duels. I think they should, because they got so many cars here, and it'd be really fun to watch how the duels pan out. But I'm sure the team owners wouldn't be a fan of that because they probably wreck a few times and waste some unnecessary, equipment. But as far as the Xfinity Series, a lot has changed this year. Kind of like we were talking about a few weeks ago. There's a lot of different faces and different seats. Noah Gragson, Ty Gibbs, AJ Allmendinger all moved up from the Xfinity Series to the Cup Series. So they won't be here anymore. That kind of leaves an open slate for somebody to really make something happen. And it opens up, something for veterans like Brandon Jones, Justin Allgaier of the series to really make something happen this year and maybe, finally strike on that first championship. So what I'm seeing so far at the racetrack, I believe the Joe Gibbs Racing cars are fastest at the moment. They were all going out in groups. I believe Sammy Smith and Jonathan Nemechek are the two JGR drivers this year that people I feel like are putting under the radar a little bit. But it's gonna be a fun year. It's gonna be a wild race. I think 30 full-time drivers in the series, the most they've ever seen, and qualifying will be tomorrow with 44 cars going for 38 spots. So Xfinity Series is going to be a lot of fun this year. I'm sure we'll touch on it each week. I can't wait definitely for their season opening race tomorrow night.
Very cool. You're listening to ESPN Northwest Florida. We're on the line with RJ Starcevic. He is founder-owner of the NASCAR Report on Instagram, also a regular contributor over at TobyChristie.com, which is a great news site for racing. RJ, talking about teams in the Xfinity Series, it's obviously easy to touch on the biggies. We've got Gibbs, we've got Childress, we've got Junior Motorsports. Those teams are always going to be competitive no matter who's in the seat because, the equipment, the divide between those teams and some of the lesser tier teams is so extreme. Having said that, there is that kind of B level of team that, is regularly contending for those, 12th to 19th position. And it seems like a team that very well in Alpha Prime Racing has kind of ascended to that. This was for the longest time as Martin's Motorsports kind of a backmarker team, but they've grown over time. They become Alpha Prime. They start to get some new interest from sponsors, step up their game. And last year they had some really solid results. This year they go forward with an Earnhardt behind the wheel and Jeffrey Earnhardt with the 44. Talk to me about what they're expecting out of him at Alpha Prime and what can we reasonably expect out of that team in 2023?
Yeah, so I got to sit down with all of them this morning as I got to the track. Reconnecting with everybody. I got great relationships with everybody over there. But yeah, they're really excelling. I think this year for sure. As I'm walking kind of towards the area right now, they got 2 haulers this year instead of 1 because they're bringing 3 cars to the track every week. And yeah, they got an Earnhardt behind the wheel and Jeffrey Earnhardt, who I feel like. And I'm sure he feels like hasn't gotten that huge opportunity yet. Maybe he feels like this is the best one. And he's driving a Chevrolet, and they'll be leasing some good motors throughout the year. I think he's got a really good chance to be one of those top B teams. And Alpha Prime has been progressing themselves, obviously over the last 2 to 3 years, where they believe they can field a good driver for a full year, and he seems to be excited about it. And all the conversations he had, I haven't gotten to talk to him yet, but just talking to everybody over there, at Alpha Prime so far throughout the year, everybody's got high hopes and high expectations, and we're going to see what happens. But very excited for them. But they know going into the year, and Tommy Joe and Cesar Baccarella, the co-owners, know going into this year they got a lot of competition as far as the B teams in the garage. A lot of family-owned teams, a lot of smaller teams that are only getting better each and every year. Everybody's, gaining more and more resources. So it's a dogfight down there in that B team level. But like you said, I think they're ready for it and they're taking it head on.
RJ, with NASCAR returning to North Wilkesboro Speedway for the All-Star race, first let me get your thought on that, on them bringing it back there.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. You talk about one of the most historic tracks in NASCAR history that people have been talking about for years. Bring it back, and now it's finally coming back into reality, and they're keeping the same track surface. I think that's incredible as well. And it's going to be awesome to see how that event pans out. They'll have the Truck Series there as well, and as well as some other racing during the weekend. So the North Wilkesboro event's going to be really fun. I'm hoping I make it up there for it because I feel like it's going to be a once-in-a-lifetime show. that you're not going to want to miss, whether it's on TV or actually being at the racetrack. So I definitely can't wait for that.
It seems like it's the one thing happening in NASCAR right now that all fans can get behind as being a very good thing. Whether it's the Chicago street race or the numbers being shifted to the fronts of the doors, like everybody's got an opinion. But it seems like Wilkesboro is the one thing that we can all put our hands up in the air and say, yes, we are legitimately excited for this race. Good on the sport for that.
Yeah, it's everybody's excited. The fans are excited. I'm glad that, everybody's kind of come together for it, because the All-Star race itself has kind of felt very lackluster over the last few years. Nobody really, knew what the point of it was. We moved it from Charlotte, tried it at Bristol. It worked in a sense, and it didn't. Obviously, with the pandemic going on, it was hard to really tell. And then sending it to Texas for a few years, I think just really wasn't going to work out. As just far as the fan feedback and everything, everyone was obviously pretty negative towards that. So NASCAR knew they had to make a change, and North Wilkesboro finally got itself revitalized and got the racing going, and they checked it out and said, looks like we're going to be able to do it. So they're installing safer barriers as we speak and just remodeling a few things, but they're not touching it too much where it's going to have such a classic feel. It's really going to be the same place. And obviously, I've never been able to see that track in person, but hopefully I'll be able to get there when they race there in a few months.
RJ, man, we can hear those cars roaring around the track right now. Thanks so much for giving us some of your time, and look forward to chatting with you or running into you sometime this weekend.
Yeah, for sure. I can't wait to see it. Yeah, I'm sure you hear these cars. The Cup cars are taking the track now. They're very loud. So
I love it, man.
There's no missing these.
Yeah, it gives it a real authentic feel. Hey, RJ, take care, buddy.
Awesome. You guys too. Thanks for having me on.
No doubt.
Appreciate it.
Ian was telling me earlier how long RJ's been doing this. And I don't know. I think we guessed his age to be around 23. I'll find out when I run into him this weekend. But Ian was telling me he's been doing this since he was like 14 or 15 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's a self-made man.
Like Luca, huh?
Yeah, he's totally a self-made man. He loves the sport. He started covering it on his own just as a fan and developed a real following on Instagram for that, and then parlayed that into podcasts. Now he's a writer with TobyChristie.com. Pretty sure he does some freelance work with the Cars Tour, which is a short track series up in North Carolina that's owned by Dale Earnhardt Jr., Kevin Harvick, Justin Marks, and some other folks. So he is full-blown in the game now, and it all started because he was a hustler when he was in high school.
Well, imagine being a teenager and you're walking up to some of these, to NASCAR and these racing teams, and you're saying, here, I'm here to do this. Not that he sounded like that, but you get what I'm trying to say.
14, right.
Yeah, you're a teenager, young teenager at that, and you're trying.
Counting the hairs.
Right. But you're trying to, to do all that, and I think in these instances when we see this, and this isn't to say that he didn't put in his work. I know he did, but it's always that first step, right? Whatever that is, whether it was one driver or one team or a former driver or something that kind of let him get his foot in the door, and then he took off with it, right? So very impressive, very impressive. But you're going to Daytona this weekend, as RJ said. Bucket list item, right?
Definitely a bucket list item.
You're going to have a good time.
I can't say that it was a bucket list item.
Yeah. But I mean, most sports fans.
Now that I've gotten back into NASCAR, I would say within the last 3 years, absolutely a bucket list item. I would also say, if I'm just being honest and transparent, it might have been Talladega over Daytona. But now that I'm a day away from leaving, it's like I can't believe that this is actually happening.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I've never been to a NASCAR race, been to a Grand Prix race, and I hear such great things about it. I'm really excited about it, and I know that I used the term legitimate earlier, but invested NASCAR fans, guys who really care about the trajectory of this sport, I understand their grievances with it, but me as, someone who's kind of new to it, I think that they're doing something good for the outsiders in a sense, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then again, it's kind of like baseball. Like you're almost pandering to the could-be fans and not feeding your bread and butter fans.
So what's top of the list bucket item? Top of your bucket list.
Wrigley Field.
Wrigley? Okay.
Wrigley.
All right.
All right. Ian?
I'm going to go with the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I've done a lot of races. I've done Daytona, I've done Dega, I've done Bristol, I've done Charlotte, I've done all of those. But I have never had a chance to go to the Brickyard for the 500. Particularly now that the NASCAR race there is being run on the road course, I couldn't care less about making out for that race. It's a trash race. But the spectacle that is the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on Memorial Day weekend,
it's impressive.
For the Indy 500, that's a bucket list.
It's impressive. Like I watched the Brickyard, the Coca-Cola 400, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
This was when they were on the oval.
Yeah.
And being from Louisville, going to Churchill Downs, going to Churchill Downs and stuff, and then you pull up to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and you're like, oh my God,
right.
They have an entire golf course in the interior. But bucket list, real quick, top of the bucket list.
It's hard. Like, I don't know if I got like a building per se. I mean, like I got something in mind. I mean, our buddy Boston Tim just saw it not too long ago. But how about the Roman Coliseum?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's a cool,
cool
stadium or arena.
Cool.
I mean, people have like died and been like slaughtered in building like that too.
What's yours?
Fenway, man. I've been to Wrigley.
See, Fenway's number 2 for me.
Yeah, I've been to Wrigley. Awesome. Was there in 1990. Saw the Reds play the Cubs. World Series year, by the way. So Fenway after that.
Unfortunately, these buildings don't last too long. Now all you get's about 25 years out of a stadium or an arena, and then they're getting knocked down for like condominiums or some other kind of jazz. And
Yeah. We got to run to a break. You guys are riding with the Afternoon Underdogs. You're listening to ESPN Northwest Florida. When we get back, it'll be time for Traffic Jammin' Trivia.
ESPN Northwest Florida. It's the Coach James Hale Show.
I mean, what a mullet. I mean, come on. I'm not even going to say that state's name anymore, though. My psychiatric counselor at the VA, yes, I served also, she advised me she told me to quit talk radio, but then she said, well, why don't you just quit bothering that Michigan Eddie guy? You're kind of a bully to him.
Weekday morning, 7 to 9. ESPN Northwest Florida.
It's a new year to dream big and drive bigger in an SUV from Bill Bird Kia. Take the first step toward your next adventure and stop by Bill Bird Kia today. You'll find the perfect match in an SUV from Bill Bird Kia, now offering 3.25% APR for up to 48 months on the purchase of a new 2023 Kia Sorento. You'll get the perfect balance of comfort, safety, and technology. Bill Bird Kia is the home of the 20-year, 200,000-mile warranty. Stop by and see us anytime at 2435 East 15th Street and also online at BillBirdKia.com. We'll treat you like family and give you the peace of mind you can trust.
Offer from Kia Finance for the purchase of a new 2023 Kia Sorento with $22.22 per month per $1,000 financed at 48 months. Quantities limited. No down payment required. Cannot be combined with other finance offers. The 20-year, 200,000-mile warranty is a Bill Bird Kia warranty. See dealer for complete details. Offer for well-qualified buyers. Must take delivery from dealer stock through 2/28/23.
Your biggest investment is your home. Protect it while also improving its appearance with Earthworks of Northwest Florida. We have sand, mulch, gravel, or lay down decorative stone, all available for pickup and delivery. Discover your dream landscape with Earthworks of Northwest Florida. Imagine the moment you proudly pull up to your home that you've worked so hard for, enhanced by quality mulch, decorative stones, and more. Let's make it happen today. Request a quote online at earthworkspc.com or swing by the office at 2005 Industrial Drive. Love the land you live on.
It's go time all the time. Sports talk around the clock.
Oh my gosh!
Now back to the Afternoon Underdogs. 104.3 ESPN Northwest Florida.
Play a little trivia. You guys are riding with the Afternoon Underdogs, and you're listening to ESPN Northwest Florida Traffic Jammin' Trivia. Which driver has the most Daytona 500 wins? And Ian came up with this question, so he gave us some options. We'll go back to the multiple choice days here. Is it Jeff Gordon, Cale Yarborough, Jimmy Johnson, or Richard Petty? 850-215-6290 for your chance to win $25 to not the, but that boot store and a 12-pack of Buffalo Rock. Ian Malone is our special guest this Friday. Ian, tell us your latest book, I believe, The Last Argonaut, but you haven't released that yet, right?
No, it comes out March 17th.
Oh, yeah. St. Patty's Day. Tell us a little bit about that and the genre of writing that you do.
So I'm a sci-fi writer, all right? Typically, I'm writing military science fiction or space opera, okay? This one is a little bit different. It's set in a universe called the Salvage Title Universe. It was created by a guy named Kevin Steverson. It started with a trilogy. It's since morphed into about 20 books from various authors, across the sci-fi space. It's also been picked up for film rights, so it's going to be coming to a silver screen near you sometime in the next few years. But anyway, there is a game in this series, in this universe, that's kind of the part of the popular culture called War Ball. And it's been referenced, many times over as being this kind of amalgam of football, rugby, MMA, like it's just total hardcore sport, right? So I was at a convention, I guess about a year ago with Kevin, and he pulled me aside, one night in the bar after panels and was just like, listen, we want a War Ball book. And we think, you're obviously a sci-fi writer, but you've also got a background writing in sports, doing sports broadcasting. You're the guy. You're the guy who needs to show people what War Ball looks like. So I was like, okay, that's an interesting challenge. How do I write a sci-fi sports book? How does that even work, And so I got to thinking it started out as, all right, I'm going to take all of my favorite sports stories and throw them into a blender, okay? So Major League, Miracle on Ice, The Replacements, Longest Yard, Necessary Roughness, all right, all those. We're going to throw those in there, and now I got to tell a story. And I got about 2/3 of the way through it, and I thought, I've really got to have something to drive this home, all right, because it would be really cliche if you write a sports story and get to the coach's speech at the end, which everybody knows is coming in any sports movie, right? Mm-hmm. How do you make that matter? All right, how
Listen
do you make
up,
that,
NFL script writer.
How do you make that? How do you make that resonate? And so then it occurred to me, rather than having all this take place on this beautiful tropical paradise of a planet that I had created in 3 anthologies, what would happen if this place had been decimated by a natural disaster? And I looked out the window at where we live in Panama City, and I see just how much work is still being done today to put this town and this area back together. And then I thought about New Orleans after Katrina and how much we all rooted for the New Orleans Saints. Now, what would have happened if somebody was working behind the scenes to steal the Saints right out from under the city of New Orleans right after Katrina had happened? And that was the eureka moment. That was what brought it home for me. And so this is that story. It's the story of it's set 9,000 years in the future. It's got, aliens and spaceships and all that good stuff. I tell people it's the Replacements, thrown into a blender with Guardians of the Galaxy. That's basically what it is. But it's the story of a team in this game, in this city, that has really been hit hard by some really tragic circumstances. But the team is the one thing they rally behind. And they haven't been good in forever. And this coach puts together this team of misfits that nobody wanted, and they find that magic formula that, if we tweak the game this way, we can give them something that the opposition has never seen.
It's got a little Al Davis.
We may not be very talented, and we may not be very big, and we may not be very fast, but if we play this style of War Ball, we can do some things. We can win the crowd, as they said in Gladiator.
I love it.
And so that's the story that's told in The Last Argonaut. And for the record, shout out to the Herb Brooks Foundation, Herb Brooks, 1980 Men's Olympic Hockey Team. They gave us permission to use a Herb Brooks quote on the back of the book.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. We'll get right back to that. We've got Bill on line 1 playing some trivia with us. Bill, which driver has the most Daytona 500 wins?
Got to be the king, Richard Petty.
My man.
Richard Petty with 7 wins. Good stuff. Bill, who you got winning the Daytona 500 this weekend?
Bush.
Okay. All right. Hey, good stuff. Man. Hey, Bill, hang on the line, and James is going to grab some more information from you, all right?
Fantastic. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for listening. All right. Sorry to interrupt
Hey,
you
man, we're in
there.
the trivia segment. That's what you do, That's a great pick, by the way, Kyle Busch, to win the 500.
But how awesome would it be if that coach in that book was like John Madden-esque?
Right. Well,
like sitting there smoking cigarettes on the sidelines, and
I do
9,000 years in the future.
Whatever.
I do have the
whatever it is they're
address
smoking.
announcer.
Then
I do have the public address announcer who drinks too much and curses on the air when he's not supposed to, a la Bob Uecker.
All right.
There you
His
go.
name is actually Uecker.
Oh, nice.
There's some other sportscaster names in there that are thrown around as little Easter eggs that sports fans will pick up on, I'm sure.
Nice.
So, but it was a fun one to write. Comes out March 17th. I'm really excited about it. Early buzz on it is people really like it. Again, it was tough to straddle that line. How do you tell a book that sports fans are going to love and that won't turn off sci-fi fans? And how do you write a book that sci-fi fans will love and not turn off the sports fans? So it was tough, but I think we nailed it, and we'll know on March 17th whether or not we did the job.
Yeah, I love it, man. That is.
Where can they get pre-sales or anything like that right now?
It is not up for pre-sale yet, but if you go to my website, ianjmalone.net, and sign up for my newsletter, I'll keep you posted on all of that. And
there
then
you go.
follow me on social media. I'm on Facebook. I'm more active on Twitter, but I'm on both. At Ian J. Malone.
Awesome.
Ian J. Malone. Y'all go give him a follow. Last year, you're not doing the Dudes in Hyperspace podcast.
No,
but
we've
they can
taken
still,
a little bit of a break for that,
but they
it's
can
still
still
out
go
there.
back and listen to some of the older episodes. They do a great job, especially if the blend there of sci-fi and sports. I mean, to come up with a sport like that, I know you said you took a whole bunch from everything and threw it into a blender and came up with that, but still very interesting to me how tough that could be.
Well, the trick was in creating the game.
Yeah.
You know, because I don't want it okay, so worst sports example in sci-fi ever was in the crap movie that was Starship Troopers.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we're going to throw a ball down the field. People are going to flippy-doo and do all this crazy stuff. And it doesn't make any sense, but it's cool, like it. Well, if you're a sports fan, we need more than that, all right? We need things to make sense. We need to see strategy. We need to see philosophy. Like, we need to see it actually work. It's chess to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So creating a game in text that people could follow along with, because ultimately the goal is when you get to the end of the book, and I'm just calling plays, and we're just rapid fire, we're up tempo, it's time to go, 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 go. As the reader, I need you to know what the hell's going on. And so that means kind of training the people in the early part of the book to be able to understand these concepts, but also not lose them in the story. Because I got a story to tell about a town and characters and people and a team and stakes and all that kind of stuff. So it was cool. Like I said, it was probably one of the biggest challenges I've ever taken on as a writer. But really, really rewarding. When I turned it in, I told my wife, I poured a really good glass of Buffalo Trace bourbon that night, and I told my wife, I think we may have something very special here. Regardless of the way it turns out or how it sells, I'm proud that I got to be the one who wrote this story. That's about all I can say, man.
Good for you, man.
That is great stuff. Tiger Woods shooting. What?
No, I'm just saying it's awesome. That was pretty cool.
Tiger Woods today shot, I think he went 3 over par to bring his total up to 1 over par, which has him in danger of missing the cut line. So we'll find that out here shortly. Well, not while we're on the air today, but the bigger story from this.
Lord knows he's been cut on enough lately.
The Tiger Woods outdrove Justin Thomas yesterday on hole 9, and something has been blowing up on the internet afterwards. Tiger Woods placed something in the hands of Justin Thomas.
A female personal hygiene device.
Yeah, we're not going to shout out the brand because they're not advertisers with us.
Right.
But, Tea Company, if you would like to get on with the Afternoon Underdogs, we will have you. But what do you guys think about this? So Justin Thomas got a handshake and a tampon from Tiger Woods. Are people making too much out of this?
100%, man. I mean,
wild.
that's what golfers do. We rib each other. We all pull for each other on the course, right? Like I don't want, if Dave and I are out there playing, I don't want Dave to have a bad day. I want Dave to have a great day. I want him to hit every putt. No, but I want to play better than you. But I want you to hit a good shot every single time. Golfers are the same way. But at the same time, if I outdrive you on a hole, and you hit before me, and then my ball goes flying past yours, I'm going to say you might want to clean that ball off before you hit it.
Yeah.
Just
or
because
tell me
of
to put my purse down.
Right. Pick up your purse, whatever it is. But I mean, there's ribbing that goes on throughout the day, between people on the course, and it's no different for these guys. Just because they're millionaires and they're famous and they're the best golfers in the world, that doesn't change the camaraderie that happens on the course. Now, obviously, if you've got somebody like Brooks and DeChambeau, can you imagine if that had happened, right? If
Well,
Brooks
it would have been a different personal female, device. It probably been a douche for DeChambeau.
Right, but can you imagine if Brooks had done that to DeChambeau? Like, what kind? It could have been bad.
Yeah. Yeah,
Now-
these are really good buddies. And one thing that stands out to me is just the creativity behind it, not what
The
he
planning.
used.
It's
the
out of
planning
character for
behind it.
golf. Like talking the trash is one thing, but then now using the prop, I think that's the thing that's got everybody up in arms.
Mm-hmm.
The verbiage, that's going to be in any sport, but
Yeah.
like pulling that out and again, like in this world that we live in where like it's wrong to, say somebody played like a girl to now use this analogy, that's another reason why you think like a lot of feminist groups are probably going to be throwing their arms up about this kind of stuff, and banning, golf now, and out in front of Augusta here in another month and a half or whatever with signs, protesting and whatnot.
But like you were talking about before the show, Dave, you said, did he know that he just carry one of those in his bag just in case that this happened?
Those are for nosebleeds, just in case he gets
is this where he's at? Like, oh man, I really want to get him over on one, because what happened is they probably played in the match, and there was some ribbing going on there behind the scenes that we didn't get to partake in. And he thought, you know what, I'm going to do whatever I can since I have this opportunity to get back at him.
And they play golf together all the time.
Right. But if you remember, Tiger and Rory got beat by Justin and Jordan. So, there's grudges there, even though they're good friends. So,
or his real dream in life is to become a prop comic.
Well, I don't know, because he didn't do this for publicity. If you watch it, the way that he handled
But I mean, with cameras, you have to know though that there's so many cameras and there's so many people and eyes watching that you can't do anything without it being not seen. You know what I mean?
Really, the way that he handed it to him, almost like
that would almost even lead you to believe that is there something else shady going on? Is he giving him a PED? Are they like doing a shady drug deal back behind a Wawa or a 7-Eleven somewheres?
I mean, he did like he was tipping a valet, right? I'm like at a hotel, it was just kind of like real sly, like here you go, take that.
Or the gambling on the course, it can lead to a lot of things. I'm just saying the look, it's not a good look.
Where you at on this, Ian?
The only thing that could have made this story better is Justin Thomas, right? And then we're talking about who handed Justin Thomas turns around and just flips the tampon into the crowd of fans to watch the mad scramble to see that one guy. Right. I got the tampon.
Right. Oh my gosh!
And then he's gonna go sell it on
Was it
eBay
a vampire?
for $90,000.
Right.
So I bought a tampon on eBay from the Justin Thomas guy.
Tiger's
for
tampon. Yeah.
Did a vampire get a hold of it? Is that who wanted it most?
We've got to run to a break. We'll be right back with the Afternoon Underdogs, hour number 2 coming up next. This is ESPN Northwest Florida.
ESPN Northwest Florida, the Paul Feinbaum Show.
Legend is next.
Yes, I told you last week that an official was going to win the MVP of the Super Bowl. It's the reason I didn't bet a damn penny on it. Let's get it together, baby. Woo!
Paul Feinbaum, weeknights, 6 to 10 on ESPN Northwest Florida.
Here at Panama City Toyota, we love things that last. Of course, it starts with beautiful, reliable Toyota cars and trucks. It continues with every customer relationship, across generations and hundreds of thousands of miles. And now, we're proud to offer something you can count on year after year after year. A free lifetime warranty that covers your drivetrain and powertrain. If you shop with us, we'll be here for you. Because peace of mind should last throughout your entire journey.
104.3 ESPN Northwest Florida are proud members of the Panama City Beach Chamber. We'd like to welcome the newest members to the Beach Chamber.
Coastal Wildlife Adventures, Neon's Beach Shack, Reed's Jewelers, Pier Park, Todd Herendeen Theater, and the Patch Boys of Panama City, Fort Walton, and Milton, Florida.
Congratulations from the area's only sports radio station, 104.3 ESPN Northwest Florida.
Reliable Copy Products is proud to be the exclusive dealer in Northwest Florida for Kyocera office equipment. Reliable Copy Products has been committed to providing professional, personalized service for the last 35 years. They understand that the right equipment does not always fall within today's budget requirements, so they offer several options for the equipment you need today for the growth you expect tomorrow. Call James Smothers at 784-6601, 784-6601. Reliable Copy Products on Harrison Avenue, just north of Bay High School.
WGSX Lynn Haven, WTOT, W271DN Mariana, WVLQ Port St. John, powered by Pepsi, ESPN Northwest Florida. You're riding shotgun with the Afternoon Underdogs. We're going to need some gas money. The Afternoon Underdogs.
Fill her up, please.
At 104.3 ESPN Northwest Florida.
We are back for hour number 2 of the Afternoon Underdog here on ESPN Northwest Florida. I'm David Hayes along with Adam Goff, Caveman Rick, Ian Malone, and James. We've got Kerry Miller on the line. He's a writer for the Bleacher Report covering college football and college basketball. Kerry, with the number 1 seed and the ups and downs that they've been having, it's been called the number 1 seed jinx. Is that due to parity this year, or is it the scheduling?
I think it's more so a lack of reliable guard play across the country. You know, we went into this season knowing it was going to be the year of the big man, and you look at all the top teams, and most of them have a dominant post presence, but a lot of them have just questionable guard play, and that's really what's most consistent. You know, with the best teams year in, year out, it's usually who has the best combo guards in their backcourt, and I don't think we really see that this year. So a lot more schizophrenia, if you will, than they're used to seeing.
Kerry, Steve Kerr came out and said that AAU basketball has replaced high school basketball, and it has not been, or it has been to the detriment of the product of basketball as a whole. Do you think what you just said there about guard play, do you feel like maybe there's some truth there to what Steve Kerr is talking about?
Yeah, I don't know if it's just this year's class that, you know, things are a little weird. I think it's more of an NIL, not NLI. I'm getting the acronyms mixed up, but I think it's in the big guys. The NBA don't want them, right? So they come back. Guys like Drew Timme and Oscar Tshiebwe and Zach Edey. You know, 10 years ago, those guys are lottery picks, no brainer. Now they're sticking around for extra years of college. So it is becoming more of a front court centered game. I think, if anything, that will kind of have a negative impact on the NBA in the long run, that, you know, you're better off being a big man in college. So I think if, you know, people want to play the, you know, Euro basketball, if you will, where all the big men shoot threes, they'll probably actually go the European route. And I mean, college basketball is not going to die. It'll still be a great thing, but I think the NBA draft community will start to deviate more towards the G League. And, you know, when we inevitably get rid of the one and done rule and guys can go straight from high school again, I think that'll change things as well.
So that's getting back to I guess, like you said, like the fundamentals in coaching, and with the AAU or AU kind of kids playing that ball-centric kind of a game where it's all about me and lack of a better term, just the lack of the inability to be able to coach these kids. Do you think that's going to continue, or do you think there may be some kind of a renaissance where maybe these kids start understanding about, you know, being coached up and learning fundamentals and having a more roundabout game where they're more valuable to a team in more than one fashion?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that is the real inherent difference between, you know, high school basketball and AAU, where you're like just playing on random teams from one game to the next, it seems. You don't have that. You don't build that camaraderie with teammates. You don't have that same coach you always have. I mean, guys are just jumping from one system to the next, one team to the next. And it's just there's no consistency, which, again, we're seeing that at the college level too. Now that guys can transfer and not have to sit out, the transfer portal is the most popular way to build a program anymore. So I really don't know what the future of basketball as it is. Certainly not from an NBA and a talent development standpoint. I mean, I barely even pay attention to NBA draft stuff. I'm just enjoying the chaos of March Madness and everything building up to it.
All right. Hey, Kerry, real quick, I'm a Louisville fan, so I have my own opinions on this, but who's to blame for the season that Louisville is having right now?
Not Kenny Payne. People are saying and like asking if he's going to get fired after one season. I think that's insane. I think he inherited just a god-awful situation. I mean, you can blame it on Rick Pitino and everything that happened there, and kind of the stigma left on the program. You can blame it on Chris Mack and the job that he did there before, you know, skipping town. It's a mess. But I think Kenny Payne had enough coaching experience. I think he'll be able to build that program back up. Eventually, Louisville will be a brand name program again, but this year is just god awful for that team.
Yeah, trust me, I know better than most.
Kerry, how you doing? Listen, I am a Florida State grad, and so I'm going to kind of keep things close to home here. Leonard Hamilton, when he arrived at Florida State, we were not very good. Over the course of a decade, he took a dumpster fire of a program and built it into something that was not only competitive, but a team and a program that year in, year out, the Dukes and the North Carolinas of the world knew we're going to get a war when we go to Tallahassee. I worry now that in the twilight of his career with NIL, with the transfer portal, Florida State is all in on football, maybe not so much in basketball. What can we reasonably expect from a guy like Leonard Hamilton in the last few years of his tenure in Tallahassee, given the current climate of college basketball?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're seeing the same thing there that we're seeing at Syracuse with Jim Boeheim, right? I mean, obviously it's not quite as long of a tenure there. He hasn't been there since 1978 or whenever the heck Boeheim arrived. But just, this older guard of coaches seems to have sort of lost touch with the transfer portal and with the focus on NIL and all this stuff. And we saw Coach K and Jay Wright walk away. I mean, we thought Mike Bray was retiring. I guess he's just leaving Notre Dame and might still want to coach. But it feels like those older coaches are starting to go, and we'll see what happens to replace them. I mean, if from what I hear, Leonard wants to come back for at least one more year, and as well as he's done with that program, I think he has tenure. He can decide when he's going to walk away. They're not going to tell him to leave, but whenever they do decide to replace him, I think what you're getting at is, are they going to be too far gone by the time they try to replace him? That it is just a full-blown rebuilding situation, and that I don't know, but I do think that's why we're seeing the guys in their early 70s starting to call it a career now.
Gotcha.
You're listening to ESPN Northwest Florida. We're on the line with Kerry Miller, writer for Bleacher Report. Who's the team that's been disappointing this season, especially when you compare them to their expectations?
How long you got?
Hey, we got about 20
North
minutes.
Carolina. Yeah, no, North Carolina was preseason number 1 in the AP poll, and they might not even make the tournament. I think Kentucky was 4, somewhere in that range in the preseason poll. Should have been a 1 seed. They're right on the bubble as well. So those two blue blood programs just being so down and out compared to what was expected, I think those are the main ones. And I mean, even Duke, unranked. I know it's John Shire's first year. We weren't really sure what to expect. They've had some injuries there, but that was supposed to be a top 10 team as well, and they're kind of slipping towards the bubble too.
What about on the flip side of that? What's the team that's exceeded their expectations?
I would say Purdue. I believe they were just outside the top 25 to start the season, and then up until 2 weeks ago, they were the unanimous number 1 team. They're kind of slipping here. I don't know if it's just the freshman guards in the backcourt are starting to hit that proverbial freshman wall here in mid-February. They're getting a little sloppier, but I think that's a team that really nobody saw coming. I think they were picked 7th in the Big Ten, and they should still, even with their recent schneid, they should convincingly win that league.
All right, we got just a couple weeks to go here. Give me one mid-major to keep an eye out for come tournament time.
I like Kent State. I don't know if they'll even win the MAC tournament. Akron's pretty good too. Toledo's in the mix. Ohio's always a factor. But if Kent State gets in, that's a very good defensive-minded team. They force a ton of turnovers. They almost won at Houston, which is going to be the number 1 team in the nation on Monday, almost certainly, if they beat Memphis on Sunday. They almost beat Gonzaga. I don't think they have any bad losses. So the Golden Flashes, they're probably going to be a 12, maybe even a 13 seed, and they're going to be, if they get in again, a very popular first-round upset pick.
Hey, Kerry, who do you think is going to be, like, who's the strongest conference that's going to have the most teams probably in the dance this year?
I mean, the strongest conference, hands down, is the Big 12. Like, it's usually there's at least a debate, whether it's the Big 10 or the SEC, ACC. It's not even close this year. I mean, they're not going to put all 10 teams in, but all 10 teams from the Big 12 are good enough to be NCAA tournament teams. And I think right now, with the top 16 reveal coming tomorrow afternoon, we're probably going to see 5 Big 12 teams in that top 16, and 3 other teams from that league are pretty convincingly in the tournament picture right now. So I think the Big 10 might actually put in more more from a quantity standpoint. They might get 9 out of whatever it is, 14 or 15, but percentage-wise, the Big 12 is where it's at.
It's crazy.
Go ahead.
You go ahead.
Well, Kerry, I was going to put you on the spot here. Who are your number 1 seeds right now?
That's Alabama, Kansas, Purdue, and Houston. I don't think there's much debate there. Texas, Baylor both have good resumes. UCLA and Arizona as well, but I think there's been a pretty clear line in the sand there for about a week now. Purdue is starting to fall back towards the pack, opening up a space for possibly 2 Big 12 teams on the top line, but I'm about 99% sure that's the 1 seeds we're going to see tomorrow.
Which of those teams do you think would make the deepest run in the tourney?
Oh, man. Now that's a different question altogether. I would probably say Houston, and they're the least tested of the bunch because they play in the AAC, which may well be a 1-bid league. They only played, I think, 3 really tournament-caliber teams in non-conference play. They beat St. Mary's and Virginia and lost to Alabama, which should probably be the number 1 overall seed, but I don't trust Alabama because of their turnover problems. I don't trust Purdue because for whatever reason, the team with the best big man always seems to get knocked out early by some team that just mucks up the game and dares the refs to call fouls like crazy, and that gets them knocked out. So, probably either Houston or Kansas, and with Kansas, I'm just always a little concerned about, that they've played the toughest schedule, and they have one of the shortest rotations in the country. I just wonder at what point that fatigue is going to catch up to them.
Who's a Power 5 conference sleeper that could make a run to the Elite 8? Like, I know we don't have the seeding yet, but a 7 or 8 seems to be seed and a team that can make a deep run, almost like North Carolina did last year in the tournament.
Yeah, I like Creighton in that conversation right now. They were 9 or 10 in the preseason AP poll and then dropped 6 straight games in late November into early December, but they've been on fire lately. They had their big man Ryan Kalkbrenner was out for 3 of those early losses. I think they've really figured it out. I think they've been one of the best starting 5s in the nation, but their resume, they're probably going to be like a 6 or a 7 seed unless they win out, and then they could get up to like a 4 or a 5. But that's a team I'm definitely leaning towards putting into the Sweet 16 no matter what their draw is.
Kerry, give me 3 guys right now that could be Player of the Year.
I'll give you 3, but Zach Edey's going to win it from Purdue. Right now, I think your first team All-Americans, so I'll give you 5. So Zach Edey, Jalen Wilson from Kansas, Brandon Miller, the fantastic freshman from Alabama, Azuolas Tubelis from Arizona, although maybe he's fallen back a little bit. Who else do I have in there? Drew Timme is also in the mix, and then Trace Jackson-Davis from Indiana. So I gave you 6, but it's going to be Edey. That's pretty much over unless Purdue loses out. Really, the only way I could see him falling from that top spot is if they lose the next game to Indiana and Trace Jackson-Davis just clearly outplays him in the post. But in their first matchup, Indiana won, and Zach Edey still somehow won that battle. So I think it's the big Boilermaker or bust.
How about a coach and a program out there that is the coach is doing really well, exceeding expectations, really coaching his guys up, even due to lack of talent on the team?
Yeah, I think Coach of the Year right now, it's always there's no defined criteria for that. I think it usually goes to who exceeds expectations the most, and for me that would be Jeff Capel at Pittsburgh, who was very much on the hot seat heading into the season. We thought he might get fired after last season. And then they had a freshman, Dior Johnson, who was supposed to be, their starting point guard. He got suspended for a little legal issue. Hasn't been playing at all. They lost their big man, John Hughley, I think 8 games into the season, and they might still win the ACC. They were picked to finish 12th when they thought they were going to have those guys. If we had known what Pitt's roster would be, they probably would have been picked to finish last, and they might win the league. So I think that's going to get him a lot of recognition.
Hey, Kerry, thanks so much for giving us some of your time, my man, and we look forward to chatting with you again ahead of the March Madness tournament.
You got it. Take care, guys.
Absolutely. That's Kerry Miller. He's a writer for Bleacher Report. We were talking in the previous segment about Tiger Woods and the ordeal with the tampon and everything. Just so everyone out there, if you got something in a bunch, he did apologize. He did apologize if this bothers you and you can't find the humor in it. He did apologize. So there you go. You can now get back on the fence and ride that. Eric Bieniemy is looking to be, or looks like he is going to be, the Commanders' offensive coordinator. Are you guys surprised that he made that jump going from Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs to now either Sam Howell, or do they go back with Carson Wentz, Ron Rivera, and the Washington Commanders?
Don't forget Taylor Heineke's in there, too.
Isn't he a free agent, though?
The pride of
Heineke's a free agent, right.
For me, I mean, like, it is a lateral move. I just think this is a chance to prove yourself. Okay, you don't have Patrick Mahomes. You're not under the guidance or on the wing of Andy Reid. You're still part of that coaching tree now, and you'll always be tied to that. But an opportunity to say that, hey, I can maybe go to this franchise, prove myself there. We know that franchise, is in some flux, probably going to be sold here pretty soon. So who knows? Ron Rivera could be out. I mean, they could clean house too. I mean, he could take this job and he could be done in a year. He might not have a job if they decide to do something totally just different.
Yeah.
So that's a possibility. I just think it's an opportunity to maybe I don't even know if wanting to be actually a head coach himself. I mean, he has interviewed, but maybe he just like I said, needs to have that feeling of himself that he can do it on his own and he's not attached to anybody.
Well, I mean,
that's one thing
I'm curious to see who their quarterback is going to be. Right.
Right.
Everybody's talking about the whole Fields scenario of the Bears trading him and whatnot. Derek Carr visiting with the Jets today. Is Aaron Rodgers going to get traded there? So there's a lot of talk. Lamar Jackson and his contract issue with the Ravens being franchised, possibly being traded. If I'm Bieniemy and Rivera in Washington, we've seen what Bieniemy can do with an offense that's got weapons, right? And a good quarterback. If I'm Washington, I'm throwing everything I have at the Ravens to get Lamar, to have Bieniemy there with Lamar Jackson, with Jahan Dotson, Terry McLaurin, Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson. There's weapons there. I would go after Lamar now that you got Bieniemy in the fold.
Dude, wow. What does the NFC East look like if Lamar Jackson goes to the Commanders? Because they were the best division in football last year.
Cowgirls bringing up the rear?
Yeah, possibly.
You think the Giants repeat their success last year and take a step forward?
Stay probably status quo, maybe making the playoffs.
I think
barely.
with their offensive line getting better, they were young last year. Their offensive line getting better. Their defensive line is good. They got a little trouble in the secondary that they need to shore up. But Hodgins showed that when he was healthy that he was good. Richie James came on strong at the end of last year. You get Barkley back in the fold.
He's got to prove he can stay healthy again.
Right, but you get Barkley back in the fold and Dayball there, and you saw the difference in Josh Allen with Dayball and without Dayball. There's a stark difference between the two players. So I think with the Giants having Dayball, say they re-sign Daniel Jones, yeah, they got potential to be either that number 2 or number 3 team in that division.
I don't like this move at all, guys. That's just me. Eric Bieniemy to Washington, I don't like it, man. Number one, why is this guy not a head coach yet? I mean, you have the round robin of coordinators that get looked at for head coaching gigs every year. All right, this guy has been atop the coordinator list for potential head coaches for years now, and yet he's still in Kansas City. I don't know if he was responsible for Jimmy Hoffa. Do they got photos on him somewhere, and so he's got to always be an OC? What happened?
Maybe he just doesn't interview well.
I don't know, but I don't like this move for his career. There is too many variables in Washington that are way out of his control, and I think that staying in Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes, it's the best shot at keeping your stock at the highest that it can be, so that when the opportunity, that door does open for you to become a head coach, you're primed to be able to step through and take it. I think Washington is a massive step down for this guy. Now, I mean, I guess it's risk or reward. If he goes to Washington and shines, he'll be a hero. But I look at all the turmoil in that organization. I love Riverboat Ron. All right, I was in Carolina when he was in Carolina. He's a great guy. He's a good coach. But, I mean, what's his future there? All the uncertainty that is the Washington Commies. All right, and now you're going to step in and become the offensive coordinator of that unholy mess. If you're looking to be an HC, I don't think that's the step you take, man.
I can agree with that to an extent, but also on the flip side, if they do have success and it is because of Bieniemy, then that even raises that his stock rises.
Makes him look
at
that much
point.
better.
But how much better was Josh Allen in 2022 under the tutelage of Ken Dorsey compared to Brian Daboll? Find out when we return. You guys are riding with the Afternoon Underdogs, and you're listening to ESPN Northwest Florida.
ESPN Northwest Florida. Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max.
I was going to make an NFT joke, but Jay gets a little sensitive when I make NFT jokes
I just
nowadays.
think your jokes don't hit anymore.
Your
jokes used to
You
hit.
got out of the market in time. You should be happy. You got in and out. You made some money. Be happy.
Still in the blockchain market.
Oh, you're out of the NFT game already, Jay? You didn't even let it mature.
Weekday mornings 5 to 7 on 104.3 ESPN Northwest Florida.
Weather forecast for this afternoon: cloud showers and thunderstorms, some locally severe thunderstorms, and temperatures falling through the 50s during the afternoon with gusty winds. Partly to mostly clear in the upper 30s to around 40 tonight. Northwest wind up to 30. Sunny, breezy, temperatures in the 60s over the weekend. This weather forecast has been brought to you by Earthworks of Northwest Florida. For ESPN Northwest Florida, I'm meteorologist Tim Root.
If it's Western wear for the whole family you're looking for, there's only one place to shop. That Boot Store. The selections are huge and many of your favorite name brands at affordable prices are available. Want the finest in work clothes? Famous Carhartt work clothes are available too. Open Tuesday through Thursday 9 till 5 and Friday and Saturday 9 a.m. till 5:30. Next to Kia 15th Street, Panama City. Remember what Joe always said, keep Jesus in your life every day.
104.3 ESPN Northwest Florida are proud members of the Panama City Beach Chamber. We'd like to welcome the newest members to the Beach Chamber.
A Superior Transport, local movers. Alpha Dewatering of Florida. Coastal Property Services 30A. Keller Williams. Skip Koski. And Lashings and Aesthetics by Natalie Mills.
Congratulations from the area's only sports radio station, ESPN Northwest Florida.
In your face.
Questionable calls all over the NFL this year.
On the field.
Quantify to put a value on momentum. You can't do that.
And in your radio.
Hashtag NFL rig.
Now back to the Afternoon Underdogs, ESPN Northwest Florida.
Afternoon Underdogs. You're listening to ESPN Northwest Florida. Three fantastic frequencies: 104.3 in Panama City, 102.1 in Mariana, 101.9 in Port St. Joe. This Saturday, starting at 10:30, we've got three fantastic college basketball games for you. Illinois at Indiana. Following that game will be Baylor at Kansas. And wrapping up Saturday evening will be Auburn at Vanderbilt. Then on Sunday, 12:30 coverage time, starting for the Engines to Roar Daytona 500 right here on ESPN Northwest Florida. Now, looking at these Josh Allen stats from 2021 compared to 2022. Now, first things first, he played 17 games in 2021 compared to 16 last year, but that's not his fault. I guess technically he played 16 games in 5 minutes. When you look at the completion percentage, exact same, 63.3%. When you look at the yards, he played 17 games in 2021, 4,407 yards. In 2022, he had 4,283 yards, so not a huge difference there. Touchdowns, 21, he had 36. In 22, he had 35. Interceptions in 21, he had 15. And in 22, he had 14. So not that big of a difference, though. Now, I would say that the biggest difference, and it's a huge difference, red zone play for the Bills.
Right, and that's where I'm getting to, right? So decision making.
I was just trying to.
Right. So
he did have 3 more fumbles in 2022.
Yeah, that's what so he led the league in turnovers when you count fumbles and interceptions. But it's not just that, we're not talking, okay, this is a first quarter throw.
Yeah.
It's 3rd down and 17, and it's basically a punt, right? We're talking key moments of the game. Minnesota,
late moments of the game.
on their own goal line, fumbles the snap, Minnesota gets it, scores a touchdown, goes on to wins the game. The Dolphins, had the Dolphins beat through a late fourth quarter pick in the end zone, actually, when no one else was around. So, I mean, there's just so many instances of his decision-making ability has been what's the word I'm looking for? Hampered, yeah.
Play calling's a little different too, though. A lot more running.
It's funny too because I remember on one. I'm sorry to interrupt you like this, but I remember on one of the shows before the season started, I was reading about Ken Dorsey taking over the OC job, and I was like, is this going to have an effect on the play calling and the way that the Bills run their offense? And I don't know if it wasn't noticeable, but then when you talk about the red zone, it was. Sorry about
No, it's cool. I was just saying, like, a lot more running, I think this year as opposed to last year, design runs and just, breakdowns of plays and him just deciding just to tuck the ball and just try to do it himself. That's also something else. I mean, you have, like, a good crop of wide receivers. You got a decent tight end, so you do have some outs. It's not always about, hey, I need to make the play. I mean, you got guys out there, Stephon Diggs, guys like Cole Beasley before, dudes that can catch the ball, Gabriel Davis, guys that can make plays. We've seen it, in big moments and stuff. So along with the running and then the turnovers late in bad spots, it's like Adam was saying, it's not in the most opportune times. It's probably like the worst opportune times that those are coughing the ball up and then causing turnovers and losing games. Kind of like Lamar Jackson did too a lot, like this past season too. A lot of his stuff was towards end of games, bad spots, not the best of spots.
Jaguars,
and that ends up hurting you. Like the wrong time, it can just mean a big swing in the game.
So on the flip side of that, pull up Daniel Jones statistics pre-Dayball. With Dayball.
All right. Let's do that. Real quick though, let's get over the phone line. We've got Ricky who wants to talk about Eric Bieniemy. What you got for us?
Hey there, Dave. I agree with you that, or whoever it was that said he'd be better off staying with Kansas City rather than taking a crummy job where he's going to likely fail.
That was Ian, I believe.
Okay, but I think there is something in his background. I don't remember specifics, and don't really want to dredge it up. I'm sure you could Google it, but it may have had something to do with domestic violence or something along those lines. I'm not sure anything was proved, but that's maybe one of the reasons why he's not getting a shot at head coach. So I'm sure I remember that from a discussion on a message board or something. So that was just my thought.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, thanks so much for the call, Richard. I'm Googling that. I've heard multiple things. I've heard that it stems back from his days at Colorado, right. And there was a domestic violence issue there. I
hate to say it, but I mean, you could say too, it's got something to do with the fact that he's a black coach, and that they don't get as many opportunities as a lot of the other guys out there. Unfortunate as it sounds, it's probably one of the biggest reasons.
Again,
some teams are probably not even going to get a chance just because of certain owners and stuff like that.
Well, the Rooney Rule though applies in all
there's
all
ways
franchises,
around that, though.
But maybe he just doesn't interview well, right? Like maybe he's got all the tools upstairs, but when he sits down in front of an owner, in front of a president or GM or whoever it is that he's interviewing with, and he goes to present his plan. I mean, maybe he just doesn't have that ability to convey that information that he has up there in his noggin. I mean, again, I don't know, but there has to be something that these team presidents, team owners, GMs, when they sit down in a room with Eric Bieniemy, they all walk out with that same thought of, "This isn't our guy."
Right.
And I can't say that there's one reason over the other, whether it's race, whether it's, he doesn't have the experience, whether he's got the domestic violence past, whatever it is. It may not be just one thing. It may be an amalgam of everything. But for me, the only thing I can come up with is that makes rational sense, is that he doesn't have the ability to sit down and carry on a conversation with somebody and put forth what his plan for that franchise would be.
Right. And I mean, that may well be the case. Not all coordinators are made to be leading men. I mean, when you start stepping into head coach, it's far more There are far greater parts of your responsibility that you don't have as a coordinator when you can just focus solely on personnel and X's and O's. Yeah. So, I mean, that is a very, very plausible hypothesis that he steps into the interview, and when they get to that part, maybe he just doesn't seem like he has the chops to be able to be the head man on the top of the totem pole. Maybe he's just meant to always be a first lieutenant, okay? But again, I mean, when you look at the names of coordinators that come out every year and are up for head coaching jobs, and you see guys that have had maybe 1 year of success.
Look at my Eagles. 2 guys with 2 years experience is it, and they're both head coaches right now.
Right. And then you look at Eric Bieniemy and the sustained success that Kansas City has had. I mean, you do scratch your head. As far as the domestic violence stuff, I don't know anything about that. I mean, if that happened in the past, I do not know the story behind that. But, the NFL prides itself on being a second chance league, whether you're Tariq Hill or, Michael Vick. They pride themselves on second chances.
Or third or 10 or 18 or 22. If you got talent, it trumps everything.
If it's enough to keep you from being a head coach, it should be enough to keep you from being an offensive coordinator.
100%. You would think.
You're still aligned.
You would think.
You're still aligned. But you're not
the face of the franchise.
Yeah. That's true, but at this point, though, even as much as we hear about Andy Reid, through all of these head coaching hiring cycles that we've had, Eric Bieniemy is in a league of his own when it comes to the exposure that a coordinator gets.
Well, and I think that's the reason that he's that number one or number two every single year is because every year he gets skipped over, and it just becomes this. Like, I don't know if you guys know anything about daytime TV back in the day, but like my mom watched All My Children for years. Right. Susan Lucci.
She's supposed to. That's her job. Right, she's your mom.
But Susan Lucci was always up for like the female, actress of the year for all the soap operas back in the day. She did it for 30 some odd years and never won it. And then finally, after like 35 years, she won it. Eric Bieniemy is basically the Susan Lucci of the NFL. He's the guy that's always going to be one of the best.
That's the hot take.
But he's going to be the one guy that everybody's going to look to. He's that backup quarterback that everybody loves.
They bring him in for the Rooney Rule.
But then it just doesn't happen.
That's the other reason. Then he's just getting all these opportunities just to get interviewed, just so he can fill that slot for a bunch of teams and say we did interview somebody for this position, so we're okay, and now we can just do whatever. And I don't want to say enabling it, but if he's just going to these interviews and that's how he's being used, if you will, by these teams, that might be the reason why he's getting the interview.
My biggest takeaway from this is Josh McDaniels must be a heck of an interviewer. Go ahead, Ian.
100%.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, if that's legitimately true and that's legitimately a thing, how has Lovie Smith coached for half the teams in the league? I mean, whenever you need a rebuild or at least somebody to pass the time, like Lovie Smith has been hired by everybody, college and pro. And I love Lovie. Don't get me wrong. I loved him when he was the DC under Tony back in the first Super Bowl run by the Buccaneers.
Well, head coaching, it was only Bears now and a Houston head coaching, right, for Lovie Smith?
Was Bears, Houston, I want to say he went somewhere. Now, I guess it was Illinois, University of Illinois.
Like two NFL teams, and he just got the second one just this year.
He was there a year.
And he was only there a year. Hey, but they did hire D'Amico Ryans right there in the
what does that say about Houston? Pretty maybe a good organization.
Inclusive.
Very inclusive, I was going to say, unless it's one thing you have to have a reason to draw people, like players. You're winning 2-3 games a year, right? So if maybe you appeal to that culture, maybe you have a easier time maybe getting some players you might not normally get just because of that.
Maybe, but all I know is I'm happy the Bengals kept their OC at DC, so I'm good.
I mean, that is a tough thing to do, especially after having success like that. You would think if you were those coordinators, getting to the opportunity to be a head coach, that's great. But if you're those coordinators, or if you're Nick Sirianni, like, hey, like, one more year?
Can we get
what's up?
One
more
doubt.
year out of you so we can get back here and let's accomplish.
You got to
the goal
strike
we
when the
set out
iron's
for.
hot. Now, I mean, you just coming out of the Super Bowl. Your stock's not going to be any higher unless we go and win the Super Bowl next year.
Steichen I think maybe he can do something with Indianapolis, provided that they actually do something other than
they have to get a quarterback
or keep that revolving door going.
Do you know where Steichen had one of his first coaching jobs?
I'm gonna guess Louisville.
It was Louisville.
But outside of that, I feel bad for Jonathan Gannon, though. Like, he's got to go to.
Hey, he chooses his fate,
no,
man.
100%.
You know, I don't feel bad for him.
But
he turned his back on us.
I think it's going to be very much like the whole Nathaniel Hackett thing, except for maybe he gets the benefit of the doubt and gets a second year because there's not a Sean Payton waiting somewhere out there.
Well,
in the
and he
woods.
gets benefit of the doubt because he's probably not going to have Kyler Murray for the first 6-8 weeks of the season.
That's fair.
So he does have that benefit of the doubt. But you have a franchise in Arizona that is willing to put money where their mouth is. We've seen it. I mean, they gave Cliff Kingsbury like 5 years, and then obviously they fired him this season. But they gave Kyler Murray his contract. Whether you agree with it or not, 2 years prior to when they had to. They went out and made the move for DeAndre Hopkins, which was a blockbuster deal at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So they've been willing to put up the money. So if he's able to build a coaching staff around him, with Kyler Murray or without Kyler Murray, he should have the ability and the financial backing of ownership to be successful.
And speaking of these coordinators, like earlier this week, I commented, man, I'm jealous of Sean Payton and the Broncos right now because they're probably going to land Rex Ryan, man. I think he would be great for Philadelphia, man, being that his dad coached there. And even though his dad didn't have tremendous success, I mean, he was just straight Philly to the bone. You know what I'm saying? And that's why the fans love that guy. And so, like, man, if you could get him, because he knows all about it. He was there when his dad, was coaching.
You can admit it, Rick. You're just you're a foot fetish guy. It's okay.
No. Actually, I'm not. But I am down with the Ryans. Let's just put it that way. And I think Sean Payton's going to do a hell of a job with him if he lands him on his
Sean
defensive
Payton's
side of the ball.
Solid at Denver, no matter what. I think that was a good hire.
I mean, their only impediment is probably going to be Russell Wilson.
That's fair. So what is the turnaround for the Broncos next year? Like, what is the record got to be? What is the amount of wins that
500,
they need?
basically like 500.
That it's like, all right, we're not just moving in the right direction because we could have moved in the correct direction with Nathaniel Hackett. We could have gained 3 more wins with Nathaniel Hackett next year, and people aren't really talking as bad about us. But what does Sean Payton, how many games do they have to win with Sean Payton where it's like, okay, that was really worth it? Because in my opinion, I think you got to go 10. You got to double up. I don't think that you're going to get that.
You're not going to get it that first
I think
year.
it's 9, but, they outside of the Chiefs games and obviously the Rams, that last step with Baker, we can throw that one out the window, but the rest of the season, I don't think they gave up over 17 points defensively. So, if you're the Broncos next year, get 9 wins under Payton, get all that draft pick nonsense out of the way, move forward with your franchise, stay tight in some games that maybe you shouldn't be in there, but score some points, right? Because that was the knock on Nathaniel Hackett. It was they were competitive in almost every game last year.
And he's supposed to be an offensive guy.
And they just couldn't move the football, right? Whether it's Russell Wilson's fault, whether it's the receivers not getting open, offensive line, whatever.
Running back hurt.
Javonte Williams went down early, but
that played a big role.
A huge role.
As well.
But still try to put up some points. So if they're top 12 in the league in offense and they have 9 wins, fantastic year because they're making strides.
And that's why I say I think that they need to have 10. For me to say, I don't think that they need 10 wins. And the Broncos and Broncos fans are not going to care whether it's 8, 9, 10, 11 wins as long as they move in the positive direction. For me to sit here and say that it's well worth it to go get Sean Payton, that he just automatically changes the direction of your franchise, which I understand that hiring Sean Payton changes the direction off rip. But what I'm getting at is if the defense comes back and plays the way that it did last year and that the offense doesn't change enough for them to double up on their wins or get to 9 wins or whatever, then it's like, why are you paying this guy almost $20 million a year?
But at that point, I think it's more.
No, I get
you're doing
that.
it for down the
I
road.
get that. But I'm saying but what I'm getting at is that there's a small incremental change, especially on the offensive side.
So you want a
of the
grand
ball.
slam, not a home run.
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm getting at, no, a home run is still a home run, right? Like it's still a run on the board. What I'm getting at is that an incremental change could have happened with Nathaniel Hackett. They could have gotten better with Nathaniel Hackett. If they get to the end of this road, right, and by this time next year we're talking about the Broncos again in a negative aspect, then the problem was not the head coach. as much as it was Russell Wilson.
Right.
And that's
You're
what I think
100%
people
correct.
want. They've got the horse blinders on to this whole situation, and I don't think that bringing in a new head coach and paying him $20 million a year changes the roots of your problem.
So Sean Payton is the polish on the turd.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think what you did was, in the minds of a lot of fans, kind of take one of the variables off the board. All right, so you didn't know if Nathaniel Hackett could be a good head coach. And what you found out by the end of the year is you still don't know if Nathaniel Hackett can be a good head coach. And now you don't know if the guy you brought in to be your franchise savior quarterback has got any tread left on the tire. I think by bringing in this guy, by bringing in Sean Payton, what you do is eliminate that first variable. We all know Sean Payton can coach. All right, Jameis Winston said when he got to New Orleans, it was like going to quarterback school all over again, learning from Sean Payton and learning from Drew Brees. Sitting in that quarterback room, learning the concepts. He's like, it was a whole new level of quarterback education for me. That's what you just brought for $20 million a year to Denver. So I think rationally next year, give me 8 wins in Denver, and you're going to know what you have on that roster. You're going to know what you have in Russell Wilson moving forward. And to Rick's point, you get to get some of the mess, or maybe it was Adam's point, you get to get some of the mess out from under you that is their draft situation and everything else. So I think next year is an evaluation year. If you end up with something akin to what Jacksonville got this year, which is by the end of the season, it was very clear this is a team that's on an upswing. All right, the record isn't sexy. We won the division, but it was a crap division. Record isn't sexy, but there was no doubt things are moving up in Jacksonville. If you have that same feeling in Denver by the end of this season, you'll know you hired the right guy.
That's where I'm at, too.
You get 8 or more wins. It validates making the move to get Sean Payton, to give up what you did to get him, okay? You can't expect him to go from 3 or 4 wins to making a deep playoff run in one season. So that's why I say 8 wins. You're right around 500. Validates the move. It gives you some time. Hopefully after that you can build on it the next season, and then who knows, the next season maybe you get 12 wins or something like that. 13 wins.
And I think at the end of next year, the bigger story in the AFC West is going to be maybe it wasn't Schottenheimer
and you also
in
have
LA.
to look.
Maybe it's the quarterback that's throwing the football.
It's not how many wins,
it can't
too.
be when it's been continuous. They've had all right. That's
Payton needs to come in. He needs to install his offense and do his stuff. And you might not the first 8 games of the season see a whole bunch of improvement, but if you see a huge leap towards the second half, then that'll also help validate the move.
I love getting Dave fired up about Justin Herbert.
Yeah, I do. And it's not like I'm all the way in Justin Herbert's corner or anything, because honestly, when he came out of college football, I didn't think he was going to be as good as what he is. So maybe that's why I fight back so hard on Justin Herbert when it comes to AG talking about it. And plus, you're kind of spoiled. Both of you guys essentially are spoiled with your quarterbacks and Joe Burrow.
I would say I'm
Jalen
spoiled.
Hurts.
Jalen actually...
Yeah, that's fair.
Jalen worked his ass off. Not that Burrow didn't
Yeah.
coming back from the injury, but there's a different level of expectation with Hurts than there
Joe
was
Burrow
with Burrow.
was expected to be what he is in the NFL.
And he did.
And Jalen Hurts was...
Before this season, he was
denied.
questionable. Hey, is he even a franchise quarterback?
But still, I'm going to leave off this segment with my point on Denver is the problem wasn't on the defensive side of the ball. So if you can't come in and score 5 more points a game, then that's where my issue is. And that's where I say, if they scored 20 points a game, we're talking about a team who won. And I know this is what if, but we're talking about a team who won 10 games last year at that point. 11, maybe 12. And so if you don't do that next year, for me, I'm not saying for Broncos fans, I could care less what they think. Because
but you're also going to have a different schedule this year, not different opponents, so that's going to make it tougher to score points potentially.
Fair. I think that Sean Payton is a tad bit, I'm not going to say fully, he's a tad bit overrated. Tad bit, though. ESPN Northwest Florida is what you're listening to. Afternoon Underdogs.
He's a lot bit
overrated. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
ESPN Northwest Florida, your home for Mike Greenberg.
You paid for it using a gift card that had been given to her?
We had it on the fridge for a while. I pulled it, put it into my wallet, hoping that she might not notice that it was gone, and then I whipped it out at a time in which the waitress gave us
And did she immediately recognize the gift card?
Of course. And they gave it to her as a present after we had our baby.
So do you know what happened here? Linda took your wife out for a Valentine's Day dinner.
Greenies. Weekdays 2 to 4 on ESPN Northwest Florida.
Weather forecast for this afternoon: cloud showers and thunderstorms, some locally severe thunderstorms, and temperatures falling through the 50s during the afternoon with gusty winds. Partly to mostly clear in the upper 30s to around 40 tonight, northwest wind up to 30, sunny, breezy, temperatures in the 60s over the weekend. This weather forecast has been brought to you by Mid-South Lumber, the best little lumber yard in Panama City. For ESPN Northwest Florida, I'm meteorologist Tim Root.
The Hot Light is on Krispy Kreme's Original Glazed Donuts. They make their Original Glazed Donuts the way they always have, because it's the right way, the fun way, and they love doing it that way for you, their customer. Think inside the box this new year at Krispy Kreme Donuts, with 2 locations next to Gulf Coast Hospital on 23rd Street in Panama City and the Ross Clark Circle in Dothan. Krispy Kreme Donuts, where you get them hot.
I'm in love with a man named Rudy. I'm okay with that. He knows exactly what I want. He keeps me coming back. Cooks breakfast, lunch, and dinner for me. Does the dishes too. I'm in love with a man named Rudy. Last name Barbecue. It sure is easy to fall in love with Rudy's tasty oak smoked barbecue.
Next in line.
Since 1959, 500 miles of tradition continues. The Daytona 500 broadcasts live on 104.3 ESPN Northwest Florida. Now back to the Afternoon Underdogs.
This St. Patrick's Day, you could be axe throwing with the Underdogs in ESPN Northwest Florida. Axe throwing and St. Patrick's Day, what could possibly go wrong? Keep listening to ESPN Northwest Florida on how you could win another amazing experience. All right, let's get into our local scores. Big night last night from the Bay High Tornadoes, but let's start with the 5A region quarterfinal. Riverside over Choctaw, 62-41. 4A region, that's Bay High, man. They took down Jackson at the house, 55-45, so they'll be moving on to the semifinals. Paxton takes down South Walton, 57-39. Who wants to take 3A and 1A?
I'll take it. 3A region quarterfinal. McClay took down Mariana, 62-26. In the 1A region semifinals, you had Franklin, 47, Bluntstown, 43. Cottondale took out Sneads, 41-39. Jay defeated Bethlehem 46-34, and Chipley over Paxton 57-48.
In the 1A1 wrestling meet team scores, Bay comes out on top with a total of 201 points. Second goes to North Bay Haven with a total of 184 points, and Rutherford takes up third with 161 points. Good job, guys.
Yeah, great stuff there. Bay is your district champions. What do you guys think, and what are your thoughts on the pitch clock coming up 2023 Major League Baseball? I think James wants to give it a go. James, what?
So, as somebody that worked in minor league baseball as a pitch tracker, I don't like the clock.
Hey, hold on 1 second. Hit Q right above your mic. There you go.
You got me now?
Yes, sir.
There we go.
So, I worked as a pitch tracker for the Tampa Bay Rays in their minor league system. I don't like the clock. I think it affects guys with their motions and their deliveries. You got to let the game be the pastime. Just let time pass. Enjoy it.
I like that take.
Yeah, I agree. And then, of course, now they're coming down hard on the balking rule, right? They're paying more attention to, these pitchers' wind-ups when they've got the crazy wind-ups, like, for instance, Johnny Cueto with his quick pitch or his slow pitch. There's another cat out there that does the big wind-up. I think it's for Houston.
Alvarez.
You know what I'm talking about? Where's Sam Peebles when you need him?
Yeah, I know, right?
But he does the big wind-up.
James had it, but I couldn't hear him.
Alvarez, he rocks the baby.
So, he rocks the baby, exactly. So that kind of stuff is going to be going away as well. So I think that's going to be I think that's going to play a larger role on pitchers and affecting how they wind up and their delivery. The pitch clock, man, I'm like James. Let the game be the game. Why are we trying to speed things up? You know what? I'm fine with a 3.5-hour baseball game, especially if I'm in the stadium. Like I don't.
That's what I paid
I don't
for.
want to
The
be
more I
rushed out
pay,
of there,
I
man.
I want extra
If
innings.
you
I don't want
like
to run on second
baseball
base.
the way that it is, take your behind to a stadium on a sunny day, get an ice cold beer of a brand of your choice, and a dog and some nachos. You got to get Cracker Jacks, all right, and enjoy baseball for being baseball. One of the reasons why we love baseball is because it's not the high octane game of hockey or basketball or football. The pace of baseball, the tempo at which it moves, is the heart and soul of what makes baseball baseball. And for those of us who love it, that's why we love it. Please don't change that just because you're trying to compete with the TikTok generation.
Baseball doesn't have a clock. One sport that doesn't have a clock.
Now it does.
So, I mean,
does
you should
now.
leave it out just for that reason alone. The emphasis on the balking and stuff. I really hate when all these sports every year want to try to put an emphasis on something. Hey, this year in baseball, we're going to put an emphasis on balking. Hey, in the NFL, we're going to put an emphasis on
Roughing the
targeting
passer.
type or roughing the passer. How about just call the damn rules the way they are in the book, okay, for every game and be consistent. And then you don't have to have an emphasis every year or a focal point where we're trying to eliminate some of this or trying to get rid of this year. Just do it the right way every damn year, and then you don't have to have these focal like groups every season to see what your new emphasis is going to be about.
Well, and also we have to think that this is going to be the first year we've seen with no shifting, right? So there's not going to be a shift in baseball. So what is that going to do? That's going to produce more runners on base, which we love. It's going to produce more runs, which we love. However, what's it going to do? And I think this is where
Bigger bases.
Well, but I think this is where Manfred's head is at. Is we're going to have more action, which is great for baseball. It's what everybody wants. We want big home runs. We want base hits. We want runs scored. We want crooked numbers up there on the board. But it's going to slow the game down because it's going to make sure that these games, and when they're not 3.5 hours, they're going to be 4 hours because it's going to be 10 to 9.
So the whole implementation of these rules is going to be null and void.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. But I think that's their mentality is like these games are going to be extended because there's going to be more stuff going on. That's why we're going to make it a permanent thing, having the ghost runner at second in extra innings. And we're going to try to speed these pitchers up because of the fact that more runs are going to be scored and these games are going to be extended.
This is just an illusion of doing stuff when you're really not doing a damn thing, basically. Okay, like you said, the time's probably not going to change in the games because of so you have a pitch clock, but now you're calling more balks or something like that. So you have to stop the game anyways because somebody's going to the bag and whatnot and change up batters. So in the end, you're still not going to change the time of the games. They're still going to be what they are.
The only timeliness thing that baseball has changed that I've agreed with is the intentional walk. Like, I don't want to see somebody stand up there and take 4 pitches that the catcher's standing
What
up.
about those rare times where
it's
you stand
once
up
in a
there
blue
to
moon,
intentionally
man.
walk the guy, catcher's got his glove or got his hand out, and then all of a sudden he leaves it a little bit
Lapse
too
of
close
focus.
to the plate. And I mean, that's the thing about baseball though, right?
Right,
It's
but
like
that's so
consistency.
rare.
I
Like,
know, but so
you're going
is
to pass him. Just let him go. Like,
Well, so
I'm
here-
fine with that.
1972, the games lasted about an average of 2 hours and 23 minutes, to where last year 3 hours and 3 minutes. So that's about 40 minutes.
How many TV
right there.
timeouts and commercials did
Well,
they?
that's
is
true.
the difference
The
between that
biggest
and now?
culprit of it all does not, in my opinion, fall on the pitcher. It's on the hitters.
Mm-hmm.
Every single time.
Their routines.
Yeah.
And
So let's see. Was Travis Sawchik? I read an article that he put out on the Score, and when he was a beat writer, he was covering the Pirates in 2014 for the Pittsburgh Tribune Review. He started a timer that every time the batter left the box with 2 feet, then he returned to the box, and then he would stop the timer. 42 minutes outside of the box, and that's just that night. 42 minutes of batters adjusting their batting gloves.
Their
and I
gear.
think that's one of the, you know what I mean? Like,
well,
that's
I mean,
the
imagine if
biggest
he had
issue.
done a game with the Reds with Sean Casey. Right, I mean,
Oh,
Sean Casey
or
for the
Nomar.
Reds.
Nomar
Nomar was
wasn't too
another
quick
one,
either.
right? Nomar and Sergio were playing around the same time.
Yeah.
Where like Sergio with all his waggles and Nomar with his gloves and everything. Sean Casey was the same way. I mean, I understand that aspect. So, if you want to say, okay, these pitchers need to get the ball to the plate faster, I'm with you. If that emphasis is going to be placed on them,
They have to be in the box with 8 seconds.
Then those batters have to stop all that nonsense that they go through.
Now they have essentially, if no runners are on base, they've got 7 seconds to get in the box. And if they're not ready, then they get a strike called on them.
Yeah.
So we'll see how they police it, though, because they can talk about it all they want.
Right.
But then how many times are you going to let one slip like, oh, you know? And then here's my other thing. Yes, they're taking too much time, but do they go to it when a golfer it's time for him to make a shot? Hurry up now. No, if he needs to, he is dealing with a sport that is more mental than others. The same way that golf is more mental than others. As much as we want to speed it up, they have a process. They have a ritual, a habit process that they have created. And as much as we don't like it, a superstition, but that is the sport of baseball. That is the quirkiness of baseball. That's why we love baseball.
Yep. Well, you know, I mean, listen, I stand by what I said earlier. I don't want these changes. I like baseball just the way that it is. I think there's a charm about baseball that nobody else has, and that's what makes it what it is. It's why we love it. Having said that, Major League Baseball, big business. And I think Major League Baseball and NASCAR are very much in the same boat, and is they are looking at their fan bases get older and older and older and older, and they're saying, where are the new fans going to come from? And so all of these changes are meant to try and start to reach, grow, make some inroads in those audiences for the future. That's the party line anyway. If you listen to Manfred or you listen to Steve Phelps from NASCAR, that's what it's about, growing the sport into new areas, new communities. Now, in NASCAR's case, I would double down and say, well, you're doing it the wrong way. Nobody gives a crap about a Chicago street race. They do care about North Wilkesboro. Double down on the product that is your product. Go to younger audiences in the South, Southeast. That's your core. That's your group. Go double down there.
Well, and if you're going to reach out to a younger audience, if you're baseball, stop putting your biggest games and your playoff games on at 9 o'clock at night.
There you go.
You know what I mean? On the Eastern time zone, right?
But then you get into
need
the
to have out there 3, 4, 5, 6 o'clock games on Saturdays. Put up 3 games at noon and 1 and 2, and or stagger them somehow.
In mid-afternoon, like when kids get out of school, 3 o'clock p.m.
watching these games.
But if you're Major League Baseball and you're looking to make top dollar, which master are you going to serve? Are you going to serve the fans, or are you going to serve the television partners who are paying billions with a B?
Bally's isn't doing that anymore, are they?
19 of them kind of
Get those kids to spend the money on baseball instead of video games. If you have it on at a time when the kids can watch it, maybe they're asking their parents to buy them baseball gear instead of the new Call of Duty video
Believe
game.
me, we still wish NASCAR started at 1 o'clock every week, but they start at 3, 4, 5, and 6 because they want to rope in this supposed West Coast audience, and what? It's still not happening.
Hey,
Television drives the train, boys.
Hey, and radio, well, we're off for the day. You guys have a great weekend. 3 games tomorrow. College basketball starting at 10:30. Daytona 500 cover starting for that at 12 o'clock. Coach James Hell Show will be live at 7 a.m. on Monday, and we're back at 4 p.m. Have a great weekend, y'all.
104.3 ESPN is above the rim. Exciting college basketball is back. Tune in every Saturday for the biggest games in college basketball, plus marquee evening matchups during the week. The Round Ball. And it goes for the win! You want it, you need it, and we've got it. College basketball plays here. 104.3 ESPN Northwest Florida.
Los Rancheros has been doing it right for 20 years. Los Rancheros brings a top-shelf dining experience to you with the opening of their beautiful new building. Watch all college and pro games on Los Rancheros' 14 large-screen TVs with great drink specials daily from 2 to 5 and during all the games. Los Rancheros, the place for live sports and great food on 23rd Street between Jenks and Harrison.
With over 65 years of combined experience, Instant Replay Sports Cards is happy to help you take your collection to the next level. They carry all the new hobby boxes, signed memorabilia, and supplies, as well as new and vintage cards. They sell and trade cards and are always looking to buy. They're an authorized source for Topps, Panini, Upper Deck, and Leaf cards. Instant Replay Sports Cards is open 7 days a week at 633 North Highway 231 and can also be reached at InstantReplaySportsCards.com.
PCB Coins and Cards is the beach's premier hobby store for sports cards, coins, and trading card games. PCB Coins and Cards carries the largest selection of boxes and packs from the latest releases of brands like Topps, Panini, Leaf, and more. Looking for a specific player or team? PCB Coins and Cards has a wide assortment of raw and graded cards. They carry parallel, rookie, game used, and autograph cards in both modern and vintage. Have a collection you want to sell? Bring it in and let us take a look. We buy, sell, and trade. PCB Coins and Cards on Back Beach Road, just east of Florida Linen. Call them today at 850-320-8388.
WGSX Lynn Haven, WTOT, W271DM Mariana, WVLQ Port St. Joe. Powered by Pepsi. ESPN Northwest Florida.
Cowbells and swamp, the Aggies wrong. There's nothing like the SEC.